Other than Miles, who was meeting Clara for the first time, everyone at the table already knew each other. Before the food arrived, Kevin gave Miles a formal introduction to Clara, emphasizing that he and Miles were just as close as he and Leo. Clara, as usual, was painfully shy. She managed a simple hello to Miles, and her face immediately turned a deep shade of crimson. She was the polar opposite of Isabelle's cool, reserved demeanor. Leo found himself wondering how someone as shy as Clara could have ever wanted to join the student government. Didn't that mean having to deal with an endless stream of strangers? Once the platters of thinly sliced meat and vegetables arrived for the hot pot, Leo and Kevin, the two resident chatterboxes, took charge of the atmosphere. Soon enough, even Isabelle, who rarely spoke in front of newcomers, and Clara, who was practically allergic to strangers, began to open up. Since they were all in the same major, the two girls would occasionally lean in and whisper about their classes. During a lull in their conversation, Kevin seized the opportunity. "Leo," he said, leaning forward, "winter break is about to start, and the studio is all set up in the new office space. You said that once we got bigger, you'd find a non-tech role for me. You think that could happen over the break?" Leo fished a piece of lamb out of the bubbling broth, popped it in his mouth, and shot Kevin a sidelong glance. "You've got too much time on your hands," he said lazily. "You could literally do nothing and still collect your cut every month. Why are you so determined to make work for yourself?" "It's not that," Kevin mumbled. "You know I'm a terrible liar. After we got our first big payout, my parents could tell something was up when I got home. When they found out I had a few $100,000, they freaked. Kept asking where I got it. I didn't want them to worry, so I told them about the studio. After that, my dad started on me. Said that I was a shareholder, just like you, but I wasn't doing anything. He thinks that as the studio gets bigger, I'll just get pushed to the margins until the other partners get fed up and kick me out." Leo's expression was calm. "With me here, nobody's kicking you out. I know, but I can't hide behind you forever. I want to pull my weight. I've got 2 hands and 2 feet, but I'm just tagging along while you do all the work. What kind of man does that make me? Leo, if you don't give me something to do, I'm out. I'll quit Starfall. I'd rather be broke than be some man-child you have to drag around." Kevin's face was dead serious. This wasn't just a casual complaint. Seeing his friend's conviction, Leo couldn't help but let out a short laugh. All right, don't get so dramatic," he said, smiling. "I told you there'd be work for you. I can't do everything myself. Even if you hadn't brought it up today, I was going to talk to you about this. Over the break, you, me, and a couple of people from the studio are taking a trip to the Ozarks." It was true. The conversation with Sean Shao that morning had solidified his plans. As Starfall Studios transitioned into a full-fledged media company, it would face new challenges. Its success was built on the internet, which meant that one day, the internet could also become its biggest threat. To build a buffer against future risks, Leo and Sean had agreed on a strategy: build goodwill before they were big enough to need it. And for big companies, nothing bought goodwill like charity. So, Leo had decided Starfall would donate $1.5 million to communities in the mountains. The destination was the same impoverished region in the Black Fork he and Kevin had visited over the summer. Bringing Kevin along would be a crash course in professional negotiation. After this, Leo knew he could trust him to handle future partnerships. "The Ozarks? What for?" Kevin asked, confused. Leo laid out the entire plan. Kevin listened, silent for a few seconds, then scratched his head and broke into a sheepish grin. "Well, actually, I was already planning to go back to the Ozarks with Clara for a while over the break. I was just going to come back to Crestview before Christmas. I hadn't figured out what excuse to give my parents, but now that it's for business, they won't give me any trouble." Leo's jaw dropped. "Dude, you're not even married to her yet, and you're already spending holidays at her family's place? If her dad finds out, he's going to break your legs." Before Kevin could answer, Clara sat bolt upright, her voice trembling with urgency as she defended him. "No, he won't, Leo. My dad doesn't hate Kevin. He already met him. Over fall break." Leo and Miles stare at Kevin, their eyes wide with disbelief. "He's already met the parents?" Kevin's dark-skinned face flushed a deep red. He clapped a hand over Clara's mouth. Don't say that. Why do you just say everything you're thinking?" Seeing Kevin's flustered state, Leo and Miles exchanged a look, and a wicked grin spread across both their faces. The teasing sent Kevin and Clara into a spiral of blushing and stammering, neither able to get a word out. Just then, Isabelle's voice echoed in Leo's mind. Clara took her knucklehead to meet her father. When is Leo going to meet mine? The thought sent a jolt through him. Your dad and Clara's dad are not even in the same universe, he thought frantically. You can't just meet Richard Thornton. The image of a face-to-face meeting with Isabelle's father flashed through his mind, and the pressure felt crushing. Richard Thornton was a titan of industry, a man known for his ruthless tactics. What would he do if he found out his daughter was dating a guy whose family couldn't even be found on the same map as the Thorntons? After Leo and Kevin had finished discussing the trip, Miles chimed in. Leo, Kevin, be careful in the Ozarks, okay? What do you mean? They both asked, confused. Miles opened his mouth to explain, then glanced at Clara. He changed his mind. Nothing, man. It's a long trip. Don't want you guys getting into trouble. What he'd almost said was that the region was prone to earthquakes. But with Clara, an Ozark native, sitting right there, it felt wrong. Besides, it's not like they're that dangerous, Miles thought. As long as it's not a big one, it's fine. What are the odds that the ground starts shaking the minute they get there? The 2-day New Year's break vanished in the blink of an eye. On the evening they were due back, Lester dropped Leo and Isabelle off at the entrance to CPI. Before he pulled away, he looked at them with genuine concern. Miss Isabelle, Mr. Yeager, it's getting colder. Please make sure you two bundle up. You too, Lester, Isabelle replied with a nod, her voice soft. The simple gesture seemed to overwhelm the man. He dabbed at the corners of his eyes, sniffling dramatically and muttering to himself. Catherine, my dear, our little girl is becoming so thoughtful. Leo watched the over-the-top display, a smirk playing on his lips. Lester has the soul of a drama queen, he thought. If he were a few years younger, he'd be a TikTok star. Once Lester's car was gone, Leo took Isabelle's hand, intending to walk her to the girls' dorm. He'd hoped to stop by the cider donut stand that had set up near campus, but it was closed for the holiday. He sighed. Guess we'll have to wait until tomorrow. Then we'll eat them tomorrow, Isabelle said, her tone cool and even. She wasn't the type to get upset over a missed snack. What she loved was the ritual of sitting with Leo, the two of them splitting a warm donut. Seeing her lack of disappointment, however, made Leo antsy. We could walk off campus and find another one, he suggested. We can bring it back to eat. She shook her head, her voice quiet. It's okay. I don't need one tonight. No, Leo said, his face suddenly serious. You not having one tonight is not okay. Question mark. Isabelle blinked, looking at him in confusion. Then, her eyes narrowed as if she'd figured something out. She took 2 small steps back, glanced down at her chest, and said with a frosty, deadpan expression, Leo, are you trying to take me to the Grove? Yeah, he stammered, trying to appear calm while his heart hammered against his ribs. That's where we always go to eat. Donuts. Damn it. My cover is blown. Isabelle pressed her lips together, her eyes still narrowed. But when the stand was closed before, you were never this insistent. It's just, we haven't had any in a couple of days, so. Liar. The word slammed into his brain, a direct transmission from her. He was caught. Giving up the pretense, he squared his shoulders. So what if I am, he said, trying to sound defiant. Is it a crime to want to take you to the Grove for a little friendly conversation? He figured that after all the time she'd lured him there, he was entitled to be the instigator for once. But his admission was met with silence. She just stared at him, her eyes wide and glistening. After a long moment, her pink lips parted. But there are people in the Grove, she whispered. Leo kept his composure. There are always people. Her voice grew even smaller, laced with a hint of a pout. But if you only touch one side, they'll end up different sizes. That's fine, I'll just switch to the other side and... He froze. The words had tumbled out of his mouth before he could stop them, a direct broadcast from the dumbest part of his brain. He snapped his head up. Isabelle was staring at him, her lips pressed into a thin line. Her thoughts crashed into his mind like a tidal wave. Pervy Leo, pervy Leo, pervy Leo. His face burned hot. He opened his mouth to defend himself, but his throat was tight, the words stuck. Her silent accusation echoed in his head, and the embarrassment was so acute he could have dug a hole and furnished it. This cursed hand, he thought in a panic. It's gotten a taste of freedom over the break, and now it's controlling my brain. In the end, Leo did not take Isabelle to the Grove. He walked her directly back to her dorm. It wasn't because he wasn't thick-skinned enough, he told himself. It was because the temperature was already below freezing. If he took her to the woods and his hand staged another coup, she might catch a cold. And that would be a disaster. A young couple still in the early stages of a purely physical, lip-service relationship had to exercise some restraint. When he got back to his dorm, the smell of stale smoke hit him immediately. Rex, Ned, and Felix were at it again, their asses sticking out as they huddled by the open balcony window, each with a cigarette, all staring in the same direction. Seeing their 3 exposed rears, Leo's eyes lit up. Perfect opportunity. In 2 quick strides, he was behind them, a swift kick for each. The hell, they yelled in unison, whipping around. When they saw it was Leo, They flicked their cigarettes away and unleashed a torrent of creative obscenities. Once they had vented, Leo asked with a cheerful grin, "What are you guys looking at? It's freezing out. The cheerleaders can't possibly be practicing in this weather." Rex lit another cigarette and took a long drag. "Leo, you're so superficial. Do we look like the kind of guys who only watch cheerleaders? To truly appreciate life, you must have an eye for beauty in all its forms. For instance, it's the end of the year. A lot of couples who got together at the start of the semester are hitting the 3-month mark. The honeymoon phase is over. It's peak breakup season. Plus, all the seniors are deep into their internships now. They've seen the real world, and it's not college. More breakups. You can see a new drama unfold down there every night. It's glorious. Look, there's a couple going at it right now. If he keeps pushing, he's about to get slapped. It's tradition." Rex shifted, making room for Leo at the window. Leo peered down in the direction they were looking. Sure enough, a guy and a girl were arguing under a tree. They were too far away to hear, but their body language was clear. The guy was desperately trying to explain something, and the girl was radiating impatience. He took a step forward, trying to hug her. The moment he touched her, she snapped. Crack! Her hand flew up, connecting with his cheek in a sharp slap. He didn't even flinch. Instead, he started digging in his pocket. Leo was confused. "What's he doing?" Rex took another drag, getting his wallet. "Why?" As soon as he asked, the guy pulled out a thick wad of cash and held out to the girl. She didn't even look at it. She slapped his hand away, sending bills scattering across the ground. Without another word, she turned and walked away. The guy stared after her, his body trembling, before slumping to the ground. "I've seen them around," Rex said, his voice low. "Both seniors. Looks like he couldn't give her the lifestyle she wanted, so she's out." "Seriously?" Ned asked, scratching his head. "That's so cynical. But we're all broke at this age. Isn't that normal? I thought relationships were about liking the person, not their bank account." Rex let out a short, harsh laugh. "Ned, you don't get it. That's just how it is. You can't get into her heart with love when someone else has already parked a Porsche in her garage." Leo stood at the window, staring at the spot where the couple had parted, a complicated mix of emotions churning inside him. He thought of Isabelle. He knew she wasn't like that, not a girl driven by money. But if he couldn't reach a level her father would approve of, could their relationship withstand the crushing weight of reality? A wave of melancholy washed over him. "Hey, don't overthink it," Rex said, clapping him on the shoulder, seemingly reading his mind. "Your girl Isabelle isn't hurting for cash. You two can have your pure, unadulterated romance. Money will never be the reason you break up. Besides, your studio is blowing up. Who knows? Maybe one day you'll be bigger than her old man." Leo snapped out his funk. He shot Rex a wry look. "When did you become a relationship expert, Rex? You've never even been in one." "I've never cooked a steak, but I know what one looks like. Back home, I used to see it all the time with the rich girls. They'd date whoever they wanted. Guys with no money didn't matter. They were just having fun. But as soon as they got bored or it was time to get married, they'd dump the guy and flash marry some blue blood their family picked out." Rex's casual cynicism sent a look of despair across Ned and Felix's faces. "Rex, stop," Felix wailed. "I'm not even official with Cece yet, but she spends money like crazy, especially on games. I'm starting to think she's secretly loaded. Am I going to be that schmuck who can't get in with love?" Rex frowned. "What are you talking about?" "Felix, have some confidence. You're that schmuck. Screw you. It's the standard playbook now. Most of the S-tier girls are like that. Slow to warm up, emotionally traditional about who pays for dates, but with a liberated body and an independent mind that secretly craves dependency and produces a kid at random." Felix's face paled. "Dude, stop. Don't make me hate the world before I've even graduated." Listening to them bicker, Leo felt a laugh bubble up, but it died in his throat. He wondered, if he'd never met Isabelle, where would he be right now? He couldn't say for sure that he wouldn't have become a simp. The only reason some guys aren't simps is because they haven't met someone they'd do anything for at the exact moment they're most powerless. If you meet the person you want to spend your life with when you have nothing to offer, who can honestly say they wouldn't debase themselves just for a chance. When Rex and Felix finally ran out of steam, they noticed Ned was engrossed in a novel on his phone, a goofy grin on his face. "Ned, you got to stop reading those cheesy romance novels," Rex chided. "You're going to think real life is like that." "It's not. It's okay, I know," Ned said cheerfully. "Reality is cruel." "Then why are you smiling like that?" Ned waved a dismissive hand. "You know that saying, 'Life kissed me with pain'?" Rex paused, looking confused. "Yeah, and you're supposed to say, 'and I responded with a song.'" Ned shook his head. "Nope." "Then what?" "I stuck my tongue out." "Nice." The end of the New Year's break ushered in 2 grueling weeks of review sessions and final exams. In college, as long as you didn't skip too many classes and didn't have a professor with a vendetta, you were usually safe from failing. But skipping class during finals week? That was a declaration of war. If you didn't respect the professor certainly wouldn't respect you. Miss a class then, and you're guaranteed to flunk. So, for the last 2 weeks of the semester, the four guys of room 415, no matter how late they stayed up, never dared to miss their 8 a.m. classes. Leo fell into a routine. Class during the day, followed by study sessions with Isabelle at the library. In the beginning, they'd cap off their nights with a trip to the Grove for some intense lip service. But after a few visits to their little den of iniquity, Isabelle caught a cold. She flatly refused to return to their moral dead zone, complaining that he was still only touching one side, and now they were lopsided. Every night when Leo returned to the dorm, the scene was the same. Rex was playing a solo queue FPS, Felix was duo queuing with Cece, and Ned was on his bed, lost in a novel. Even the most degenerate dorms on campus would occasionally have a group study session, but not 415. On the eve of their last exam, Rex sat on a stool, looking profoundly satisfied. He took a drag from his cigarette and exhaled slowly. You know, it's truly beautiful. The four of us are kindred spirits. Final exam tomorrow, and not a single one of us has cracked a book. Nerves of steel. I'm proud of you guys. Ned rolled over in his bed. I paid attention in class. Rex, I should be fine without reviewing. As if listening is enough. I listen too. If you can pass, I can pass, Rex scoffed. Besides, even if I fail, Leo and Felix are so busy with their girlfriends, there's no way they're passing. If I go down, they're coming with me. He looked over at Felix, who was still gaming, and Leo, who was texting Isabelle. Right, guys? Felix. Yeah, you're right. Leo, yep, totally. Hearing their responses, a wave of relief washed over Rex. He smiled, his worries melting away. He had no idea that Felix's dates with Cece were study sessions at the library, and that underneath her gamer girl exterior, Cece was a bona fide academic weapon. As for Leo, he had been fighting dirty every night. He'd practically worn out the pages of his textbooks. College exams weren't like high school finals, crammed into 2 frantic days. They were spread out over a week, 1 or 2 per day. So, after their single exam each day, Leo would take Isabelle to the gaming lounge on campus, to the private room reserved just for the two of them. It was a place where they could not only play Fireboy and Water Girl, but also engage in some serious lip service. Most importantly, it was a place where Isabelle wouldn't catch a cold. Every night, they returned to their dorms late. The moment Isabelle got back, she would change into her pajamas and disappear into the bathroom, her lips pressed together. After a few days of this, Haley Xia was puzzled. It's weird. Isabelle goes straight to the bathroom every single night. I've noticed that too, Zoe Chong added thoughtfully. I think she's washing clothes. Her laundry detergent seems to be running out extra fast lately. Zoe's comment made Haley frown. She felt like she'd been so focused on studying that she'd missed some prime relationship gossip. At the same time, in the men's dorm, Rex was pounding on a bathroom door. Damn it, Leo, hurry up. If you don't get out of there in the next 30 seconds, it's going to be a code brown on my boxers. Inside, Leo was furiously scrubbing his underwear. I saw you use the bathroom right before I came in, he yelled back. What? Are you a human fire hose? No time for jokes. Break is coming, which means a fresh infusion to my allowance from the parents. So I burned through the rest of my cash, and today I cheaped out and ordered from that sketchy late-night taco joint. Hearing Rex's agonized cries, Leo scrubbed faster, muttering under his breath. Every time I tell myself it's the last time, but it just gets more addictive. And she doesn't even try to stop me. The more I touch, the softer her eyes get. Who can resist that? Damn it, no more private rooms. It's winter, my clothes will never dry. One more time, and I'll be going commando tomorrow. What the hell was that exam? Rex stormed out of the classroom, fuming. The last few were bad enough, but at least I could bullshit my way through some of it. Today's? I didn't even understand the questions. You can't bullshit what you don't understand. I'm toast. He turned and saw that his 3 roommates looked completely unfazed. No sign of post-exam despair. It had been like this all week, but Rex had figured he had a decent shot at passing those other subjects, so he hadn't worried. He just assumed they did slightly better than him. But after this final, brutal exam, their calm expressions were unnerving. Hey, why do you guys look so relaxed? He demanded. I know I'm failing this one. The questions were insane. Don't tell me you 3 geniuses actually passed. Ned scratched the back of his head. I thought it was medium difficulty, Rex. Not impossible. I think I'm going to clear for the whole semester. Not a single F for me. Ned, you don't count, Rex said, waving a dismissive hand. You actually took notes in class. You're not in the same league of degeneracy as me, Leo, and Felix. He'd already accepted that Ned, who came from a modest background and was at CPI to learn, wouldn't be flunking out. As for the other two, Leo spent all his time on his studio or his girlfriend, skipping more classes than Rex himself. Felix was even worse, spending every waking moment gaming with Cece or on dates. They were doomed. A smirk spread across Rex's face. Well, Leo, Felix, looks like we'll be seeing each other at the makeup exams after the break. I'll try my best to get a good seat so you guys can copy my answers. No need to thank me. But instead of relief, he saw Leo and Felix exchange a guilty look. The expression made Rex's stomach drop. He felt a cold dread creep over him. You two didn't. You didn't study behind my back, did you? He stammered. Silence. Leo and Felix looked at each other again, their guilt now painfully obvious. Their eyes darted around the room, avoiding his gaze. The sight made Rex's breath catch in his throat. He felt like he was going to cry. No, come on, guys. Don't mess with me like this. I can't take it. Seeing Rex on the verge of tears, Felix couldn't keep up the act. He rubbed his nose awkwardly. Look, Rex, don't freak out. I didn't really study. It's just that Cece and our dates were usually at the library. And, since I was already there, I glanced at a few books. But yeah, today's test really wasn't that bad. I, probably passed. The words hit Rex like a physical blow. He staggered back a few steps, then turned his desperate, pleading eyes to his last hope. Leo, tell me the truth. You're just messing with me, right? That's right. Of course, Leo said, almost too quickly, shooting Felix a glare. Damn it, another traitor in our midst? He thought. Thankfully, with Isabelle's help, he knew he was safe. But out of basic human decency, he decided to spare Rex the truth. This was supposed to be the start of winter break, not the end of his world. Phew. Rex clutched his chest, a relieved smile spreading across his face. Thank God. I knew I could count on you, Leo. Just then, Isabelle and Haley emerged from the classroom next door. Spotting the guys, Haley grabbed Isabelle's arm and bounced over to them. Leo, you owe me big time, she said with a grin. Those key topics I highlighted for you and Isabelle last night, they were on the test, weren't they? It pays to be friends with Professor Yuan's TA. Don't worry, Isabelle, your man is definitely not failing this semester. The smile on Rex's face froze, then cracked. His eyes went dark. He slumped to the floor, beat his fist against his chest, and let out a primal wail. Leo, you son of a bitch. You lied to me again. I'm so screwed. Wah! The distraught Rex was, once again, served a harsh lesson by reality. Isabelle and Haley, not quite understanding the full scope of the drama, didn't press for details. Everyone was used to Rex's theatrical outbursts by now. Haley linked her arm through Isabelle's and smiled mischievously at Leo. Hey, I'm borrowing your little neighbor for the day. Since it's winter break, Zoe and Jesse are heading home, and they live pretty far away, so this is our last chance to hang out. We're going to drop our stuff off and then go shopping. You're not invited. Before Leo could even nod, Isabelle's eyes narrowed slightly. Leo, I'll be home before 10, she said softly. Listen to that. Oh, are you two living together now? Haley's eyes lit up, having just stumbled upon a massive piece of gossip. Leo glanced at the still despondent Rex and felt a pang of pity. He decided to play it cool. We've always lived in the same apartment complex, he said evasively, right across the hall from each other. So yeah, it's home. Oh, is that all it is? Haley looked unconvinced, turning her gaze to Isabelle. Isabelle just blinked innocently. Leo's right. I can't let Haley know I sneak into Leo's bed, she thought. Or else. She might figure out why I wet the bed. Leo's easy smile vanished. Her thought hit him like a stray bullet. Wet the bed? She's this old, and she still wets the bed? Wait, what does that have to do with sneaking into my bed? His mind spun, trying to connect two completely unrelated dots, and coming up empty. TSK, he thought, pursing his lips. That's so weird. A grown woman wetting the bed. I would never do that. He completely forgot what happened every time they returned from their little escapades in the Grove or the gaming lounge. With Isabelle whisked away by her friends, Leo was left to pack up on his own. After stowing his luggage in his car, he gave Ned a ride to the Amtrak station to catch his train home. Back at the Maplewood, he spent over an hour cleaning his apartment. By the time he finished, it was already 6 in the evening. Just as he was about to make dinner, his phone rang. He was surprised to see the name on the screen. Chris Shing, the president of the student government. Chris. Leo answered, his tone surprised. Leo, you're not in the student government. So why are you calling me president? Chris's voice was laced with friendly admonishment. Makes it sound like we're not friends. Just call me Chris from now on or whatever you want, just not that. Okay, how about just Chris? You're an upperclassman, after all. Huh, that works. Anyway, listen, if you're not busy tonight, come have dinner with us at the Pinnacle. The student government officers always have a dinner before winter break, and everyone gets to invite one friend. The invitation caught Leo completely off guard. An exclusive dinner for student government officers. And Chris was using his single plus one on him? It didn't make sense. Usually, those invitations were reserved for protégés being groomed to take over a position. Leo had barely interacted with Chris and had never expressed any interest in joining the student government. Why would Chris waste his only guest spot on him? The answer clicked into place a moment later. Chris must have done his homework on Starfall Studios. This was a calculated move, a way to show Leo he was valued. Leo considered it for a moment, then agreed. Okay, Chris, I'll get ready and head over soon. After hanging up, he threw on a jacket and drove toward the Pinnacle. He wasn't put off by people like Chris, who were transparently transactional. At least with them, you always knew where you stood. They told you what they wanted from you, and in return, they made sure to offer you something of value. Chris wanted access to Leo's network and resources once he became successful. In return, Chris was offering him an introduction to the entire student government leadership. These were ambitious people from a top-tier university. Not all of them would become titans of industry, but the odds were high that a few would. Chris was giving Leo a shortcut, a way to meet and build relationships with people he otherwise would have never crossed paths with. It was how the world worked, how the powerful all seemed to know each other. At 7 o'clock, he pulled up to the Pinnacle. A valet immediately approached. Good evening, sir. If you'll just give me your key, your name, and your party's reservation, I'll park your car and have the key sent to your table. Thanks. Leo handed over the key without a second thought. Standing at the entrance, he felt a wave of nostalgia. This was his second time here. The first time, he had come for revenge against Jianzhong. This time, he was an invited guest. This, he thought, a slight smile playing on his lips. This is just the beginning. He straightened his jacket and walked inside. After giving the hostess Chris's reservation name, Leo was led to a private dining room. He pushed the door open to find a dozen or so people already seated, laughing and chatting. The room glanced up when he entered, but their attention quickly returned to their conversations. Among the crowd, he recognized a few familiar faces besides Chris, the vice president, Evan Yu, and Evan's unrequited love, Nina Wei. Chris spotted him and immediately came over. Leo, that was fast. Do you live nearby? I thought we'd be waiting a while longer for you. Not too close, but I drove. Traffic was light, Leo replied politely. When Chris heard he'd driven, he didn't seem surprised, which didn't surprise Leo either. Anyone who could host a student government dinner at the Pinnacle, Crestview's most extravagant restaurant, was clearly not hurting for money. The last time Leo had eaten here, a table for 6 had cost over $2,000. Tonight, there were at least 15 people. The bill would probably top $10,000. Damn, there are a lot of rich people in the world, Leo thought with a silent sigh. Chris showed him to a seat, explaining that 2 more people were still on their way. Leo nodded and pulled out his phone. A moment later, the guy sitting next to him stood up. A wave of perfume washed over Leo as he looked up to see Nina Wei, who had been sitting across from Evan, slide into the now-empty chair beside him. She was smiling, her expression perfectly friendly. Leo, we meet again. I'm guessing Chris invited you. Leo frowned slightly. His first impression of Nina had been that of a beautiful but arrogant girl. After their encounter at the New Year's party, where she deluded herself into thinking he was hitting on her, he'd revised his opinion. She had a serious case of main character syndrome, though not as bad as Chloe's. What puzzled him now was why she was talking to him at all. After a humiliation like that, he'd expected her to avoid him for life. Yet here she was, acting as if nothing had happened. Since she was being civil, he decided to play along. Yeah, that's right, he answered coolly. I heard from Evan that the friends Chris invites to these dinners are always impressive. I was surprised when I heard it was you. But then, I did some research on your startup. Now I understand why he chose you. Leo, I thought your studio was just getting off the ground like mine, but I had no idea you'd already grown it to this scale. She spoke with a practiced ease, as if the awkward incident at the party had never occurred. Leo, however, was a little taken aback that she knew so much about Starfall's current size. Is Starfall already that well-known on campus? He wondered. Chris digging up info is one thing, but Nina too? Then he remembered. Ruby Yu was the face of their main account, and she had a sizable following at CPI. Anyone who was determined enough could trace the account back to Starfall and its network of creators. From there, it wouldn't be hard to estimate their revenue based on follower counts and view rates. He offered a modest smile. It was mostly luck, and I wasn't the original founder. A few upperclassmen started it. I just came in as an early investor. Don't be so humble, Nina said, her expression turning serious. I looked into it. You're brilliant. Her change in attitude was jarring. Initially, she had only investigated Starfall out of spite. She'd seen Leo with a girlfriend as beautiful and elegant as Isabelle and had been furious. He just runs some campus startup, and that's why he gets a girlfriend like that and gets to humiliate me. But her investigation had shocked her. While countless other student startups were stuck in the development phase, Leo's was already generating millions in profit. Digging deeper, she discovered he was a crucial player in the studio, not just some silent partner. She began to see him in a new light. His sharp, handsome features were, she now realized, far more attractive than those of the boys who chased after her. Reflecting on their past interactions, she concluded that her anger had been a product of her own pride. Leo had never intended to embarrass her. With that realization, his image in her mind transformed. His maturity and talent, so rare for his age, became an obsession. She found herself lying awake at night, thinking about him. She knew he had a beautiful girlfriend, one she couldn't compete with on looks alone. But, she thought, her pride resurfacing, a talented man would never be satisfied by a pretty face alone. Her own talent might not match Leo's, but it was certainly greater than his girlfriend's. Moreover, her family's company was well known back in her hometown of Charleston. The old rules of matching family status might be fading, but a man as ambitious as Leo would surely recognize the value of a powerful alliance. So, when she saw him at the dinner, she made a decision. She would be bold. He had a girlfriend, so what? The driver who picked her up every day drove a $60,000 car. His girlfriend probably just rode in Leo's. I'm the superior choice, she told herself. I still have a chance. Faced with her praise, Leo's mouth twitched. He instinctively leaned away from her. Thanks, he said politely. Do you want a drink? I can get one for you, she offered, her eyes shining with anticipation. The haughty demeanor she showed everyone else completely gone. The sight was almost physically painful for Evan to watch from across the table. Leo noticed Evan's discomfort and waved her offer away. No, thanks. My girlfriend gets jealous when other girls pour me drinks. No, thanks. My girlfriend gets jealous when other girls pour me drinks. The words hung in the air. The rest of Nina's carefully prepared speech died in her throat. She hadn't expected such a blunt, public rejection. Before she could recover, Leo stood up and asked the person sitting on his other side if he'd be willing to switch seats. The guy agreed, and just like that, Nina found herself watching as Leo put an entire person between them, a clear message that he wanted nothing to do with her. Her mouth opened and closed, but no words came out. Defeated, she rose and returned to her original seat next to Evan. Just then, the door to the private room opened one last time. Everyone had arrived. Chris, the host, signaled for the servers to bring out the food. Once the table was laden with dishes, he stood, glass in hand, and launched into a speech. It was the usual spiel, a summary of the semester's achievements, a toast to friendship, and a reminder to stay in touch after graduation. It was all groundwork for future networking. Leo listened with detached interest. After the toast, Chris turned the spotlight on Leo, introducing him to everyone at the table and, in turn, introducing each of them to Leo. Once Evan had been introduced, he leaned over to Nina and whispered, Chris is really overdoing it. Leo's just a freshman with a campus startup. Why is he giving him the royal treatment, introducing every single one of us? Everyone at this table is a big shot in the student government. He should be the one kissing up to us. Chris must be losing it now that he's about to graduate. Nina's brow furrowed in irritation. Evan, your student government title means something on campus. The second you graduate, no one in the real world will care. I think Chris is being incredibly farsighted. He knows Leo is just a freshman with a limited network here. By connecting him with all of us, he's earning Leo's goodwill and cementing their relationship. So what? Why does he need to be close to some freshman? The guy is arrogant and dismissive. I can't stand him, Evan muttered, then continued his rant. And the way he treated you just now, blowing you off and switching seats? He has no idea who he's talking to. Nina's expression turned to ice. Evan, is it really that hard for you to admit that Leo is impressive? She said, her voice sharp. You're both in the business program. He's a freshman whose company is already pulling in millions a month. And you get a vice president title, and suddenly you're untouchable. Leo's company could hire a dozen student government vice presidents. Could your student government ever recruit someone as talented as Leo? Nina, I just thought he was rude to you, so I... Evan stammered, completely bewildered. I was defending you, and now I'm the one getting yelled at? His confusion only seemed to make her angrier. The only reason he acted that way is because I was being inappropriate. He has a girlfriend, so he's maintaining a respectful distance. It shows he's loyal and principled, a rare quality. How can you possibly twist that into him being rude? Nina, don't be mad. I was wrong. She shot him a withering glare. Just don't talk to me. Across the table, Leo watched the exchange with a bemused expression. 1 second they were whispering like co-conspirators. The next Nina was tearing into him. TSK. Eva must have tried to simp for her and missed the mark, he thought. The clown should have stayed in Gotham instead of crashing this dinner. By 10 o'clock, Leo felt a film of sweat on his skin. After Chris's grand introduction, every officer at the table had made a point of coming over to toast him and exchange contact information. He couldn't refuse without being rude, so he'd accepted every glass. After nearly 3 hours, he'd lost count of how many shots of whiskey he'd downed. Thankfully, Chris noticed he was starting to sway and stepped in to run interference for him. Just then, his phone buzzed with a text from Isabelle. Isabelle, Haley and the others are gone. Lester is taking me home now. I want you to make me noodles. Leo blinked, realizing in his rush to leave he'd forgotten to tell her he was out. He quickly typed back, Leo, I'm not home. The student government president invited me to a dinner at the Pinnacle. We're almost done. I'll make them for you when I get back. Isabelle, oh, did you drink? Leo, a little. Isabelle, then stay there. Lester and I will come get you. He was about to type okay when another message popped up. Isabelle, be good and don't wander off. The message made his heart melt. He smiled and nodded at the screen before realizing she couldn't see him. Leo, come get me home, he typed back. The dinner finally wrapped up around 10:30. It wasn't just Leo. Half the room was swaying on their feet from all the alcohol. As they moved from the private room to the lobby lounge, a blast of cold air from the main entrance hit them, and the gentle buzz of intoxication intensified into a full-blown wave of drunkenness. Leo sank onto a sofa, rubbing his temples and looking out the glass doors. Chris came over, his expression concerned. Leo, you okay? You definitely can't drive like this. Let me call you an Uber. Before Leo could answer, Nina, who had been hovering nearby, stepped forward. That's okay, Chris. You don't have to, she said with a bright smile. I've already called my driver, and I had him arrange for a designated driver too. I'll take Leo home, and the other driver will bring his car back for him. Chris looked at Leo, waiting for his response. Leo frowned. No, thanks, he said firmly. My girlfriend is coming to pick me up. That's fine. She can ride with us, Nina insisted. It's late. It's not safe for her to be driving, especially when she has to worry about you getting sick in her car. A designated driver will be driving, Leo clarified. My girlfriend doesn't drive. Then you should definitely ride with us. I've already called a driver for you. And my family's car is a bit more expensive, so you'll be more comfortable in it after drinking. She said it with a smile, as if she weren't trying to show off, but simply offering a practical solution. Leo remained unmoved. He waved a hand dismissively. Really, it's fine. My girlfriend is coming. You should probably give Evan a ride home. He gestured to the corner, where Evan was leaning against a wall, looking pale after a recent trip to the bathroom. Evan's face lit up. He stumbled over, his expression pained. Yeah, Nina, I drank a little too much tonight. Maybe you could give me a ride. He was sure she wouldn't refuse. After all, he'd taken several drinks for her during dinner. He wouldn't be in this miserable state if it weren't for her. To his shock, Nina's brow knitted in disgust. She pinched her nose and took 2 steps back, clearly repulsed by the sour smell on his breath. The gesture made Evan's face fall. Evan, I'll just call a car for you, she said, her nose still pinched. Oh no, it's fine. Uber drivers can be so reckless. Your family's driver is much safer, hee. But I don't want to give you a ride, she said bluntly. If someone sees us together this late, they might get the wrong idea about our relationship. Her words landed like a bomb. Not just Evan, but several other officers standing nearby flinched. Evan's mouth hung open. But you're not worried people will get the wrong idea if you give Leo a ride? Nina nodded. No, she said coolly. I'm not. A collective gasp went through the group. They all turned to look at Evan with pity. She might as well have just announced, I'm interested in Leo, not you. Evan staggered back, his face a mask of disbelief. He'd always assumed she kept him at arm's length because she wasn't ready for a relationship, not because she simply wanted nothing to do with him. Seeing the tension, Chris quickly stepped in. Okay, how about this? I'll arrange for Leo and Evan to get home. Nina, you don't have to worry about it. Nina started to protest, turning to appeal to Leo one last time. But as she did, she saw her. The girl from the New Year's party. Leo's girlfriend. Everyone followed Nina's gaze. There, under the glow of a street lamp, a girl in a khaki trench coat was walking toward them, her long, dark hair flowing in the wind. She carried herself with an otherworldly grace, an ethereal quality that seemed to set her apart from the world. She moved with a light step, her expression coolly indifferent to their stares. She reached the group and gave a polite nod to Chris and the others before her eyes found Leo. The moment she looked at him, the icy facade melted away, replaced by a warmth that was reserved only for him. "Leo," Isabelle said softly, "I'm here to take you home." The exhaustion on Leo's face softened, and a smile touched his lips. He turned to Chris. "Thanks for the offer, Chris, but my girlfriend's here. You just make sure Evan gets home safe." "All right, of course." Chris nodded, still slightly stunned. Even he, who had seen his fair share of beauty, was taken aback by Isabelle's striking appearance. No wonder Leo had been completely immune to Nina's advances. He had a girlfriend who looked like she didn't belong on this planet. Standing to the side, Nina felt as if she'd been punched in the gut. Even though this was the second time she'd seen her, Isabelle's beauty was still breathtaking, leagues beyond her own. She quickly shook off the feeling, forcing a confident smile back onto her face. "So what if she's pretty? My family has luxury cars. What does her family have?" "Leo, you should," Nina began, but she was cut off by the sight of a man in a crisp suit and white gloves jogging toward them. The man stopped in front of Leo and Isabelle. Mr. Yeager, it's far too cold out here. Please, let's get you in the car before you catch a chill." "Okay," Isabelle murmured. She glanced at the half-spoken sentence hanging on Nina's lips, then took Leo's hand and led him toward the street. As everyone watched, the man in the suit opened the back door of a gleaming black Maybach parked at the curb. Leo and Isabelle slipped inside, and the car pulled away, disappearing into the night. A long silence followed. Then, the whispers began. "Holy crap, is Leo, for real? A killer startup, a girlfriend who looks like a supermodel, and apparently, she's even richer than he is. If I hadn't seen it myself, I wouldn't believe it. How can one person have it all? Was that a Maybach S680? That's like a $400,000 car, right? I'm so glad Chris introduced us to him tonight. We never would have gotten a chance to meet him otherwise." Listening to the chatter, Nina finally snapped back to reality. The expression on her face was worse than if she'd swallowed a bug. The air was freezing, but she could feel sweat beading on her forehead. She thought back to her earlier assumptions, her arrogant words, and a wave of mortification washed over her. Her family was rich, but Leo's girlfriend's family was richer. Her family's driver drove a $60,000 Mercedes. Leo's girlfriend's family's driver drove a $400,000 Maybach. And her own words echoed in her ears. "My family's car is a bit more expensive, so you'll be more comfortable." No wonder Leo had looked at her so strangely. A $60,000 car was more comfortable than a $400,000 one. She had completely flipped the script, and not in her favor. She had always seen herself as the beauty. But in front of Leo, she was just the punchline. The moment Leo got in the car, his head started swimming. It wasn't as bad as the time he blacked out, but the world was definitely tilting. Lester immediately handed him a small vial. "Mr. Yeager, this is a hangover remedy. It should help. Don't those things just a myth?" "Huh, this isn't like the ones you buy at the store. Years ago, this is what the master always took after his business dinners. It works wonders." Hearing that, Leo took the vial. Rich people, he thought, even their hangover cures are custom. After downing the liquid, he asked, "Did Isabelle's father have this specially made?" "It was the mistress who found it for him from overseas. You can't buy it in this country." Leo knew Lester's mistress was Isabelle's biological mother, Catherine Liu. He glanced over at Isabelle and saw a flicker of sadness in her eyes. He quickly changed the subject, taking her hand. "Did Haley and the others get back to the dorm okay?" "Yes. After we finished shopping, Lester dropped them off." She paused, a thoughtful look on her face, her eyes narrowing slightly. "I bought new clothes tonight." "Oh yeah? What kind?" "Lester's here. I can't show him. I'll show you when we get back." She tilted her chin up, a hint of pride in her voice, though her eyes held a shy glint that she couldn't quite hide. But Leo, his mind muddled by alcohol, latched on her words. He thought about who she'd been shopping with. Haley, the master strategist of all things mischievous. He connected that with her comment about not showing Lester. "So, the clothes are only for me to see." The realization that she might have bought something provocative made his heart start to pound. "I see how it is," he thought. "Get me drunk, and then make a play for my backup phone." "So," Leo said, his voice laced with a tremor of something between disappointment and confusion. "This is the new outfit Lester couldn't see?" He stared at the matching couple's hoodies laid out on the bed. Isabelle, oblivious to his train of thought, just blushed and nodded. "Oh, just hoodies," he said, letting out a breath. "What was so secretive about that? The way you talked in the car, I thought it was." He caught himself before he could finish the sentence. But he had already piqued her curiosity. "You thought it was what?" "Ahem, nothing." Leo shook his head, feeling guilty. "You said you wanted noodles. I'll go make them. You wait here." "Okay." Isabelle sat obediently on the sofa, watching him retreat into the kitchen before looking back down at the new hoodies, a happy smile on her face. A moment later, a blush crept up her neck. She had a pretty good idea of what he'd been thinking, because that evening, Haley had dragged her into a lingerie store. The experience had terrified her, shattering her usual composure and leaving her face burning red. The store was filled with crotchless underwear, skirts that barely covered anything, and even a dress with a tail. "What do you think, Isabelle?" Haley had teased. "Buy one of these, and your Leo will turn into a drooling puppy." Isabelle had been too flustered to speak. Finally, Zoe had intervened. "Haley, you're being mean. Isabelle and Leo obviously haven't gotten to that stage yet. Stop trying to corrupt her. Let's go, this place is so weird." Then Zoe had pushed them all out of the store. Remembering the incident, Isabelle glanced toward the kitchen again, then placed a hand over her chest, her cheeks flaming. For the next 2 days, while they waited for Kevin's school to let out for the break, Leo and Isabelle stayed home, playing video games. At night, they'd turn off the lights and watch a movie, though their hands and lips were rarely still. But when it was time for bed, they would retreat to their separate apartments, a silent, mutual agreement. Neither one wanted the other to discover their embarrassing bedwetting secret. During that time, Leo finalized the details with the contact person in the Ozarks who was handling the donation. On the 3rd day of winter break, after sharing breakfast, they headed to the airport together. Leo's original plan had been to take Isabelle with him. After the charity work was done, they could have explored the area, turning it into a mini vacation. But Isabelle had explained that her father wanted her to come to New York for a while. Disappointed, Leo had to accept it. At 10 in the morning, dressed in their matching hoodies, they arrived at the airport. While they waited for Kevin, Isabelle rested her head on Leo's shoulder. "I should be done in the Ozarks in 2 or 3 days. How long are you going to be in New York? My mother is close to her due date, so she's in the hospital now. We'll be spending Christmas in New York this year." Her voice was soft, her eyes growing dim. She tightened her grip on his sleeve, a clear sign she didn't want to be apart for so long. Leo felt a pang of disappointment himself, but he hid it. He stroked her hair and smiled. "Okay, then after I get back from the Ozarks, I'll come to New York to see you." At his words, her eyes lit up, glistening with unshed tears. Just then, a hand slapped Leo on the shoulder. "Leo, I'm here, you bastard." Leo jumped, turning to glare at Kevin, who had Clara in tow. He swallowed the curse that was on the tip of his tongue. Kevin, realizing his timing was terrible, just scratched the back of his head and laughed awkwardly. "Ahem, I'll take Clara to get in line. You, hurry up. We're about to board." He quickly dragged Clara away. "That knucklehead has no social awareness," Leo muttered. "Don't say that." Leo blinked. "What should I say then?" Isabelle pressed her lips together, then tilted her head up, her eyes full of love and reluctance. "You should say, 'Little neighbor, hug me.' You should say, 'Little neighbor, hug me.'" Looking at her vulnerable expression, Leo's heart skipped a beat. Without hesitation, he wrapped his arms around her, pulling her into a tight embrace. She hugged him back, holding on more tightly than usual. This time, their separation would last for more than just a few days. More than that, she dreaded going to New York. There, she would be all alone again. After a long moment, she reluctantly pulled away. "You should go. You'll miss your flight." Leo nodded, reaching out to pinch her cheek. "Text me when your plane lands," he said with a smile. "Okay." He said his goodbyes, grabbed his suitcase, and walked toward the gate. He, Kevin, and Clara scanned their tickets and proceeded down the jet bridge. When he turned to look back one last time, Isabelle was still standing there, watching him go. The sight made his heart lurch, followed by a sudden, inexplicable wave of panic. He didn't understand it. It was just a normal separation, only for a few days. He'd see her in New York soon after he got back. Weird, he thought, shaking his head. Maybe I'm having withdrawal symptoms from being with her every day. On the plane, he sent a quick text to their contact in the Ozarks, then switched his phone to airplane mode. He had originally booked a separate seat, assuming Kevin and Clara would want to sit together, but Clara had thoughtfully insisted Leo sit next to Kevin. This way, they could go over their work plans during the flight. "You know, they call girls from the Ozarks Spitfires online," Leo teased Kevin. "You got lucky finding one as sweet as Clara." Any mention of Clara was enough to make Kevin blush. He chuckled and scratched his head before getting down to business. Leo, I read the files you sent me. Are we really donating $1.5 million? I know Starfall is stable now, but that's enough to cover our operating costs for 2 or 3 months. Shouldn't we donate a little less? No, we can't, Leo said, shaking his head firmly. Sean and I discussed the number carefully. Any more, it would stretch us too thin. Any less, and the get-out-of-jail-free card we're creating for the future won't be effective enough when we need it. I guess that makes sense. But why do we have to go in person? Can't we just wire the money? We not only have to go, we have to hold a donation ceremony. Otherwise, what's the point? We don't need the publicity now, but when we do, we'll need to be able to make this event go viral. Right? Kevin said, though he still looked uneasy. I just feel like we're doing this for selfish reasons. Is it right to use a donation like this for our own gain? Leo sighed. Kevin was still thinking like a college kid, trapped between morality and pragmatism. Kevin, if you want to make money, you can't always draw a hard line between ethics and profit. Judge a man by his actions, not his intentions. So what if we have an agenda? Our motives aren't hurting anyone, but our money is going to genuinely help people in those mountain communities. So what's the problem? Kevin was quiet for a moment, processing Leo's words. He finally nodded in understanding. By the way, he said, changing the subject, did you see the news? There were 5 earthquakes near the Black Fork region in 1 week a little while back. Really? How strong? Not very. All around magnitude 2.0. Leo shrugged. That's nothing. A 2.0 is barely a tremor. And that was a while ago. He dismissed the topic and began outlining their plan for the donation ceremony. Even though their contact had arranged most of it, Leo had his own ideas. At 12:30 in the afternoon, their plane landed. As they stepped out of the jet bridge, they saw a man holding a sign that read, "Welcome, Starfall Studios." The man and his assistant hurried over, their faces beaming. Mr. Yeager, Mr. Xiong, welcome to the Ozarks. I'm Don Fields, the project manager for this donation. And this is Mr. Lee, the community representative from the Black Fork villages. Leo shook their hands. Mr. Fields, Mr. Lee, pleasure to meet you. I'm Leo Yeager. After the introductions, they all left the airport. Since it was their first day, Don didn't push them into work. Instead, he took them for an authentic local hot pot lunch, where they discussed the donation details more casually. During the meal, Leo got a text from Isabelle. Isabelle, Lester and I just landed in New York. Leo, good. We just landed too. Having lunch with a project manager now. We'll head to the hotel to rest after this. Going into the mountains tomorrow. He sent the message and looked up to rejoin the conversation. But just then, a dizzy spell hit him. Out of the corner of his eye, he saw the water in the glass on the table tremble. His expression changed instantly. Leo watched the ripples tremble across the surface of his water glass, a subtle dizziness washing over him. He knew the feeling instantly. An earthquake. The last time he'd felt a tremor this distinct, he was in 3rd grade, a good 10 years ago. He remembered the news reports about a massive quake somewhere on the West Coast, and even hundreds of miles away, the teachers had panicked, herding all the kids out onto the soccer field. Across the table, Don Fields noticed the change in Leo's expression. He chuckled. No need to look so tense, Mr. Yeager. We've been getting these little shakers for the last couple of days. Nothing serious, just enough to make you feel a bit woozy. You know how it is in the Ozarks? We get a few tremors every year. They just all decided to show up this winter. Some of the other diners in the hot pot restaurant, clearly feeling the same thing, were already grabbing their bags and heading for the door. Just in case. For safety's sake, maybe we should get outside. Kevin asked, his voice tight with worry. He glanced around, only to see Leo, Don Fields, Mr. Lee, and even Clara looking completely unfazed. Kevin's mouth hung open for a second. Feeling a little embarrassed, he rubbed his nose and muttered, right, Mr. Fields and Mr. Lee are from around here. If you guys say we don't need to run, I guess it's fine. He kicked Leo's leg under the table and whispered, dude, I get that they're locals, but what's with you? You're acting way too calm. You're faking it, aren't you? You're freaking out just as much as I am. Freak out for what? Leo shot back under his breath. Haven't you heard the saying? A little shake, you ride it out. The big one. You can't run from it anyway. Look around. The only people leaving are the tourists. The locals are all still eating like nothing happened. Kevin blinked, then scanned the remaining customers. Sure enough, they were all chatting away with thick Ozark drawls, completely unbothered. The knot in his stomach loosened. He turned back to the table and went back to peeling a shrimp for Clara. Here, Clara, eat up. Later that night, Leo, Kevin, and Clara were back at the hotel Don Fields had arranged for them. Leo was about to hop in the shower and FaceTime Isabelle when Kevin dragged his suitcase into the room. Leo stared at him. "What are you doing in my room?" Kevin looked just as confused. "Where else am I supposed to go?" "Mister, Fields only booked 2 rooms." "Yeah, one for me, one for you and Clara. What's the problem? He even asked me if you two were a couple." Kevin fell silent. A slow, goofy grin spread across his face, and he lowered his head, chuckling like a doofus. "Leo, Clara, and I, we've only held hands and hugged. We can't sleep in the same room." "What?" Leo was floored. If he remembered correctly, they were already holding hands when they first got together months ago. All this time, and Kevin had only managed to progress to hugging. It sounded like they hadn't even kissed yet. Seeing the shock on Leo's face, Kevin's cheeks turned bright red. "Hey, you know how shy she is," he stammered, his voice losing its confidence. "We're just taking it slow. Anyway, we're bunking together tonight." Leo let out an exasperated sigh, but agreed. His plan to FaceTime Isabelle was shot, though. He settled for texting her before bed. "Leo just showered. About to crash. Got a busy day tomorrow. Where you up to?" "Isabelle, just got back from the hospital. Visiting my mom. She's getting close to her due date." "Leo, all right. What are you doing tomorrow?" "Isabelle, nothing special. Dad's home, so I'll probably just be around the house." "Leo, okay. I'll try to call you when I have a minute. Kevin's in my room tonight, so no video call." After a few more messages, Leo put his phone down and went to sleep. The next morning, Leo and Kevin were up by 8. After grabbing breakfast with Clara at the hotel, they met up with Don Fields again. This time, he had a minibus with him, filled with staff members from the foundation. Today, they were heading deep into the Black Fork region. It was also a chance for Kevin to take Clara home. On the bus, Leo and Kevin discussed the day's agenda with Don, while Mr. Lee, the community representative, filled them in on the conditions in the villages. They planned how Starfall Studios' $200,000 donation could best be used to improve the lives of the families there. Just before 11, they arrived back at the familiar mountain village they had spent so much time in last summer. "Leo," Kevin said, looking out the window, "a few months ago, we came here to make money. Now we're back to give it away. Feels kind of surreal, doesn't it?" Leo nodded. He felt it too. He glanced over at Clara, who was getting ready to head home on her own so she wouldn't distract them. He leaned closer to Kevin. "You know, once Clara's dad finds out his daughter is dating a guy who just dropped a couple $100,000 on his village, he might just tell you to start calling him dad on the spot." "Get out of here, man," Kevin grumbled, but the grin stretching from ear to ear gave him away. Leo figured he was already imagining the wedding day. The whole morning was a whirlwind of activity. Leo and Kevin followed Don Fields and Mr. Lee on a tour of several villages, getting a first-hand look at the living conditions. Last summer, Leo had only ever seen the entrances to the villages while selling his wares. He'd never realized just how tough life was for some of the families inside. By 5 in the afternoon, their site visits were wrapping up. The $200,000 from Starfall had officially been transferred to the Foundation's public account. "Mr. She, we've received the donation," Don said. "We'll begin implementing the projects we discussed tomorrow." "Great," Leo nodded. If all went well, they could head back to Crestview tomorrow. Don pushed his glasses up his nose and smiled. "Mr. Yeager, if you don't mind, how about we have dinner here in the village before heading down the mountain? One of the residents found my colleague and learned you were the donor. He insisted on inviting you to his home for a meal." "Of course, I don't mind." "No problem at all," Leo agreed without hesitation. Kevin tugged on his sleeve. "Hey, Leo, I'm going to skip out," he whispered. "I promised Clara I'd have dinner at her place tonight." Go. Leo even had Don arrange for someone to give Kevin a ride. The rest of them, Leo, Don, and the Foundation staff, headed toward the villager's home. Soon, they arrived in front of a modest, weathered-looking bungalow. Inside, a square wooden table stood in the center of the room, laden with steaming dishes that had clearly just been cooked. One of Don's colleagues called toward the kitchen. "Mark, Mr. Yeager is here." "Got it," a cheerful voice called back. "Last dish is coming right out. Hold on a sec, have Mr. Yeager take a seat." Don smiled at Leo. "Please, Mr. Yeager, have a seat." "Oh, it's fine. You guys sit. I'm just going to use the restroom." Mr. Yeager, the toilets here are outhouses in the backyard. Let me show you." Leo waved him off. No, it's fine. I spent some time in the country as a kid. I know the drill." He walked toward the back of the house alone. When he got to the backyard, he saw another small structure, a thick, pungent smell of herbal medicine wafting from it. Just then, the door creaked open. A small, dark-skinned boy stood there, watching Leo with a wary expression. "Who are you?" he asked in a thick local accent. Leo paused, realizing this must be Mark's son. He smiled, about to introduce himself. He never finished the sentence. The ground suddenly, violently lurched. In an instant, cracks spiderwebbed across the plaster walls. The bare bulb hanging from the ceiling swayed precariously. Leo felt the floor heave beneath him, and he stumbled forward, catching himself on a mud brick wall to keep from falling. He barely regained his balance when another, more powerful jolt hit. The world spun, and he heard the sickening groan of the house and the crash of falling objects. The wall beside him shuddered, shedding dust and small stones that clattered to the ground. He lost his footing completely, collapsing onto his rear. At the same time, the wall behind the little boy gave way, crumbling inwards with a deafening roar. Leo's eyes widened in horror. There was only one thought in his mind. Earthquake, and it's a big one. As the wall collapsed, a deep rumble echoed from beneath the earth, a furious roar that grew louder and louder until it was like thunder right next to his ear. The ceiling lights swung wildly, casting frantic, ghost-like shadows across the remaining walls. With another violent shake, the section of the ceiling holding the light fixture cracked and plunged downward. It was heading straight for him and the boy. On pure instinct, Leo lunged, grabbing the boy and pulling him aside. The light fixture smashed into the spot where they had been standing just a second before. Crash! Glass exploded, and the room was plunged into darkness. Leo felt shards slice past his cheek, followed by a warm trickle. Blood. The world was still shaking violently. Everything around him was groaning, cracking, and collapsing. His survival instincts took over. He dropped to the ground, shielding his head with his hands to protect himself from falling debris. The sound was a symphony of destruction. The shriek of tearing wood, the crash of stone, the panicked squeals of farm animals, and the hellish subterranean roar of the quake itself. He didn't know how long the shaking lasted. His head was spinning. Even with his arms over his head, something heavy struck him. A dull, concussive pain radiated through his skull, and then everything went black. HSS, when Leo came to, a sharp pain in his forehead made him suck in a breath. All he got was a lungful of dust, sending him into a fit of coughing. He blinked his eyes open, but could see almost nothing. He tried to stand up. Bang! He'd barely straightened his back halfway before his head slammed into something solid and unyielding. The unexpected impact sent a blinding flash of pain through him, so intense it almost made him pass out again. Damn it, he grunted, hunching over. He waited a long moment for the pain to subside, then fumbled for his phone and turned on the flashlight. The beam cut through the darkness, illuminating his surroundings. He froze. The once open backyard was now a tomb of rubble. The ceiling, which had been at least 15 feet high, was now so low he had to stay hunched over. He was surrounded on all sides by collapsed walls and concrete slabs. The most terrifying part was the thick rebar like steel fingers jutting out from the broken concrete. Holy crap, I'm lucky. If one of those things had impaled me when I was out, I'd be meeting my parents right about now. A cold sweat broke out on his skin. He scanned his prison. It was a small pocket of space, maybe big enough to take 4 or 5 steps, but completely sealed off by bricks and concrete. He figured the earthquake must have been at least a magnitude 6, maybe higher. A house wouldn't have pancaked like this otherwise. He immediately tried to make a call, but his heart sank when he saw the screen. No signal, not a single bar. The lack of a signal meant he couldn't call for help. He tried to stay calm, moving the phone around, hoping to catch even the faintest connection. Nothing. It just read no service. You gotta be kidding me. This isn't an iPhone. Why is there 0 signal? He cursed, a knot of dread tightening in his stomach. They were in the mountains, and it was night. The earthquake had likely caused landslides, which meant the roads would be blocked. It would take rescuers forever to get up here. Even worse, he knew from a lifetime of disaster movies and news reports that after a major quake, there were always aftershocks. If another one hit, he couldn't guarantee this fragile pocket of debris wouldn't collapse further. If it came down on him, he couldn't let himself think about it. His mind filled with an image of Isabelle, her cool expression, the hint of warmth in her eyes whenever she looked at him. Just then, he heard the sound of a stone skittering nearby. His heart leaped into his throat. An aftershock? Already? But then, a small voice cried out in the darkness. It hurts. My leg hurts so much. Is anyone there? Can somebody help me? Dad, Mom, where are you? New York City, the Thornton residence. Lester knocked on Isabelle's door. Knock, knock, knock. Miss Thornton, it's me. Come in. Lester pushed the door open gently. Isabelle was sitting on her bed, completely absorbed in knitting something. She didn't even look up. He took a deep breath. Miss, your father said it's been a while since you were back in the city. He's booked a private room at the Sailors Club and wants you to join him for dinner. We should leave soon. Is my mother going? Isabelle asked, her voice flat, her eyes still on her work. Miss, the second Mrs. Thornton is close to her due date. She won't be there tonight. Then there will be others, I assume. Yes. A few of the company's shareholders will be there. You know all of them, Lester said cautiously. Isabelle finally set down the half-finished scarf she'd been working on for days. A self-deprecating smile touched her lips. I knew it. It's been a long time since my father wanted to have dinner with just me. So are you going, miss? The company has had problems with several projects recently, and your father's not in a good mood. If you don't go, I'm afraid. I'll go, Isabelle said simply. She glanced at the scarf and murmured to herself, looks like I'll have to work overtime on this tonight, or it won't be ready when Leo comes to visit. She grabbed her coat and followed Lester out to the waiting car. On the way to the restaurant, Isabelle was texting Leo, telling him she was heading to dinner. After sending it, she frowned. He still hadn't replied to the message she'd sent over an hour ago. Is he still busy? She wondered. She was about to put her phone away. Looking at it in the car always made her a little nauseous when a news alert popped up on her screen. 6.1 magnitude earthquake strikes the Black Fork region of the Ozarks at 6:11 p.m. today. The Black Fork region. A wave of pure panic washed over her. Isabelle's hand was trembling. She frantically tapped the alert, reading the details of the earthquake's location and severity. As she read descriptions of the affected areas, the panic intensified, coiling like a snake in her stomach. She opened her social media apps. The earthquake was trending everywhere. Leo's there. The thought struck her like a physical blow. Without a second's hesitation, she dialed his number, not caring if she was interrupting him. The automated message that answered sent a chill through her entire body, like being plunged into ice water. The person you're trying to reach is currently unavailable. Her vision blurred with tears. She gripped the phone tighter, dialing again and again. The result was always the same. Right, Kevin? Kevin. She clung to one last sliver of hope. She'd been to that part of the Ozarks last summer. The cell service was spotty at best. It wasn't entirely impossible for a call not to go through. She dialed Kevin's number. The first call went straight to the same automated message. But on the second try, it rang through. Isabelle's usual composure was gone, replaced by pure, frantic desperation. Kevin, are you with Leo? Is he okay? The earthquake. Before she could finish, Kevin's voice, thick with tears, cut her off. Now, he's trapped under a collapsed house. The roads are blocked. I've already called for rescue teams to head up the mountain. Isn't he with you? Why are you okay, but he's... Hearing that Leo was trapped under a collapsed building made the world tilt on its axis. She fought back a wave of nausea, her voice choking. Weren't you with him? How are you fine while he's trapped? Kevin broke down completely. Would have been a choked sob turned into a full-blown, gut-wrenching cry. We were done for the day, getting ready to head back down. But one of the villagers invited Leo to stay for dinner. I left to go to Clara's house. The earthquake hit right after I left. The foundation manager, who was with him, called. He said Leo was buried. Kevin sniffled, the wail of sirens audible in the background. I should have never left. If I'd stayed, I could be helping dig him out right now. Isabelle, I have to go. I'm going to grab a shovel. As soon as the road is clear, I'm getting to him. He hung up. A choked sob escaped Isabelle's lips. She turned to Lester, her voice trembling. Lester, to the airport. Go to the airport right now. Lester had overheard the entire conversation. He knew what had happened. Without a word, he nodded. Yes, miss. Please buckle your seatbelt. He floored it, the car surging forward. Speeding tickets were the last thing on his mind. When they reached the airport, Lester made a quick call. His expression turned grim. He hesitated before turning to Isabelle. Miss, there are no more commercial flights to that region tonight. The earliest is at 6 tomorrow morning. Isabelle's eyes were red and swollen. She shook her head fiercely. I don't care. I have to go now. The private jet. We can take the private jet, Lester. I could take off any time. Leo is waiting for me. Leo is still in the Ozarks. Please. She trailed off, dissolving into incoherent sobs. Seeing his young miss, stripped of all her poise and looking like a completely different person, broke Lester's heart. But he had to warn her. Miss, if you don't show up for dinner with your father, he's already going to be furious. Using the private jet means he'll be notified immediately. Not only will he be even angrier, but he'll find out about Mr. Yeager. He paused. Your plans regarding the second Mrs. Thornton might also be. I don't care about any of that right now. Let him find out. I'm going to the Ozarks right now. Isabelle shook her head, tears streaming down her face, her whole body trembling. She couldn't bear to imagine a world where something happened to Leo. She didn't know how she would go on. Seeing her resolve, Lester knew there was no point in arguing. He immediately went to arrange the flight. Meanwhile, the first rescue teams had reached the base of the Black Fork Mountains. Just as Leo had feared, landslides triggered by the earthquake had completely blocked the roads. Clearing a path for vehicles would take hours, if not days. For now, the best they could do was clear enough debris for rescuers to proceed on foot. Men in uniform swarmed out of their trucks, attacking the wall of rock and dirt with shovels and tools. Kevin was among them. He had been at Clara's front door when the earthquake hit. As a trained athlete, his reflexes were sharp. He'd burst into her house, pulled her away from the stove, and hoisted her disabled father onto his back, carrying them both outside to safety. Seconds later, the call from Don Fields had come through, telling him Leo was trapped. Without a moment's hesitation, Kevin had sprinted toward Leo's village, running into the rescue convoy on the way. Now, he worked like a man possessed, his hands gripping a shovel, attacking the landslide with desperate energy. Blisters formed on his palms and then tore open, but he didn't stop. The stinging pain was nothing. All he could feel was the frantic need to clear a path. For the first time in his life, he was truly grateful. Grateful he was a student athlete. Grateful he had the strength to move the tons of rock that stood between him and his best friend. He gasped for breath, his eyes bloodshot, muttering through clenched teeth, "Leo, hang on. I'm coming for you, man. I'm moving this crap, and I'm coming. Just hang on. Is anyone there? Can somebody help me? Dad, Mom, where are you?" Hearing the voice, Leo scrambled to his feet, aiming his phone's flashlight in its direction. He found the sound was coming from behind a section of a collapsed wall. After checking to make sure the wall wasn't a load-bearing piece holding up the rest of the rubble, he crouched and heaved it aside. Behind it was the little boy from the backyard. He was lying on the ground, his face and hair caked with dirt. Leo rushed to help him up. "Ow, it hurts," the boy cried out as soon as Leo touched his arm. That's when Leo saw it. The boy's leg was pinned beneath a massive concrete slab. Leo's jaw tightened. He knelt and tried to push the slab, but the moment he lifted it even an inch, the boy screamed in agony. "Stop! Stop, mister, it hurts. When you touch the slab, my leg hurts so bad." Leo aimed the flashlight at the boy's leg. He sucked in a sharp breath. A piece of rebar jutting from the concrete had pierced clean through the boy's calf. No wonder it hurt. The boy was facing him, so he couldn't see the wound. He just thought his leg was trapped. If that slab stays on his leg, he'll lose it for sure, Leo thought. He forced a smile. "It's okay, little man. Your leg is just pinned. I'm going to pull you out, but you have to be brave, okay? It's going to hurt a little." "Okay. I'm not scared of pain, mister. But can you tell me before you move it?" The boy's terrified eyes betrayed his words. Leo nodded. His real plan was to distract him and then lift the slab in one quick motion. If the boy was prepared for it, the pain would be too much. He'd probably pass out. To distract him, Leo kept his voice light. "Okay, deal. What's your name, little buddy?" "Mister, my name is Leo. Leo." Leo froze. He stared at the boy, his mouth hanging open. It took him a moment to find his voice. Your dad's last name isn't Mark? Why is your first name Leo?" The boy shook his head. "He's my dad, but not my real dad. My real dad died when I was little." "So, Mark is your stepdad?" "Yeah." A wave of disbelief washed over Leo. To meet someone with the same name, here, trapped in the ruins of an earthquake. It was beyond coincidence. Then again, he knew there were a lot of Jaegers in this part of the region. He'd even met Nina Yi, Tianxia's girlfriend, here last summer. He shook himself out of his shock and forced another smile. "That's a crazy coincidence, kid. We have the same name. I'm Leo too." "What? Really, mister? Your name is really Leo?" "Definitely. You probably heard your dad Mark say the guy who donated to the village was a Mr. Jaeger, right?" "That's me." Leo chuckled, slowly setting his phone on the ground. His hands moved stealthily toward the slab. The little boy's face lit up. "You're Mr. Jaeger. I have the same name as a big boss. When I grow up, I'm going to be rich just like you, and HHH. While the boy was distracted, Leo had put all his strength into lifting the slab. The rebar tore free from little Leo's leg. The sudden, blinding pain made the boy shriek and burst into tears. Leo ignored his cries, his voice strained. "Leo, pull your leg out now. I can't hold this for long." Okay. The boy sobbed. He saw his own bloody leg, and his face went pale with fear, but seeing the strain on the older Leo's face, he gritted his teeth and pulled his leg free. As soon as the boy was clear, Leo was about to drop the heavy slab. "Wait!" little Leo shouted, stopping him. Confused, Leo tightened his grip. The boy was pointing behind the slab. Mom, wake up. Following his gaze, Leo saw an unconscious, middle-aged woman with a shaved head lying behind where the slab had been. A long, stitched scar ran across her scalp. This must have been the boy's mother from the back room. The herbal medicine smell must have been for her. "Mister, please don't let go. I have to save my mom," little Leo pleaded, dragging his injured leg forward. Just then, the woman's eyes fluttered open. "Son, what is this?" she murmured, looking around in a daze before her eyes filled with terror. Then she saw her son's bloody leg, and her heart broke. "Leo, your leg." "My leg's fine, Mom. Get over here, quick." "Mister, Jaeger can't hold on much longer." The woman finally noticed the man straining to hold the slab of concrete off her. She nodded, trying to scramble to her feet. But at that exact moment, the ground began to shake again. Dust and debris rained down from above. Leo's face hardened. He yelled, his voice filled with dread. "Aftershock. It's an aftershock." The shaking grew more violent. The slab in Leo's hands felt impossibly heavy, threatening to crush him. He held on with every ounce of strength he had, the veins in his forehead bulging. Areas that had been damaged before now collapsed completely. Out of the corner of his eye, Leo saw a faint light appear where he had first woken up. A cold draft blew in. A hole, an escape route just big enough for one person to crawl through. A surge of hope shot through him. "Ma'am, hurry! Get up!" he yelled at little Leo's mother. The woman was paralyzed with fear, but one look at her son's mangled leg and the desperately straining man holding up the concrete slab spurred her into action. She gritted her teeth and began to crawl toward her son. The shaking intensified, and rocks tumbled around them. "Mom, hurry! He can't hold on!" little Leo cried. "Leo, you get out first." Leo shouted at the boy. "Don't just wait there. Your mom and I need you out of the way, so we can escape. I want to wait for Mom." "Wait for my ass. Get out of here now, or all three of us are going to die." Leo was so angry he wanted to slap the kid. This was a life-or-death situation, not some cheesy TV drama where someone had to make a noble sacrifice. He, for one, did not want to die. Startled by Leo's sudden fury, the boy realized he was right. If all three of them clogged the small exit, none of them would make it. He nodded and began dragging his bleeding leg toward the opening. "Ma'am, you have to hurry," Leo grunted to the mother. "This aftershock is bringing everything down. We could be buried any second." I know," she cried, pulling herself forward with all her might. That's when Leo realized something that made his breath catch in his throat. She had no legs. He grit his teeth, his arms screaming in protest as he held the slab. Finally, she cleared the kill zone. Leo let go instantly. Crash! The slab hit the ground with a deafening boom. Little Leo was already out of the hole, shouting, "Mom, Mister, hurry!" Just as his mother reached the opening, Leo saw a large chunk of rock on the ceiling above them split down the middle. The back half was about to fall, and if it did, it would seal their only way out. There would be no moving it. In a split second of hyperfocus, two options flashed through his mind. One, shove the mother aside. He was fast enough. He could dive through the hole before the rock fell, leaving her behind. Two, he could brace the falling rock himself, give her time to escape. He would almost certainly be buried alive, maybe even crushed to a pulp. TCH, I'm no saint. Why am I even hesitating? In an apocalypse, the good guys die first. I have to live. His decision was made in an instant. He took a deep breath, crouched, and sprinted for the hole. Then, as little Leo watched in horror, he shoved the woman clean through the opening. HNNGH. A crushing weight slammed onto his back. He had caught the falling rock. A pained grunt escaped his lips. He looked down at the terrified woman. "Ma'am, go, quick. It's too heavy. I can't hold it." "Oh," she stammered, scrambling the rest of the way out with her son's help. The second she was clear, Leo couldn't hold on any longer. He threw himself backward with all his remaining strength. The rock slammed down, sealing the exit. "Me? Tur." Little Leo's voice was cut off. Trapped, Leo didn't even have time to catch his breath before the ground shook again. The remaining half of the rock on the ceiling broke loose and crashed down onto his left shoulder. With a sickening crack, a bolt of agony shot through him. He couldn't lift his arm. The world collapsed around him. The pocket of space that could have held three people was now barely big enough for one person to curl up in. When the aftershock finally ended and silence returned, Leo's hammering heart began to slow. Cough, cough. Damn it. A bitter, helpless feeling washed over him, so strong he wanted to cry. It was the primal fear of knowing, truly knowing, that he was going to die. He had been about to save himself. He wasn't a hero from some movie. He didn't want to die for strangers. Not when he still had to see Isabelle again. But when he'd seen little Leo's panicked face outside the hole, the kid with his name, something had shifted. This Leo, he lost his dad when he was little too. If his mom dies here today, then there will be two Leos in the world without a mom or a dad. The thought hit him with the force of a physical blow. He knew he could never go back to a timeline where his own parents were alive. But maybe he could give this other Leo that chance. In the end, he'd held up the rock. He'd given little Leo's mom the hope of survival. He had finally given himself a chance to live in a perfect timeline with a mother and a father. He sighed and turned on his phone again. Still no signal. The battery was at 10%. It would be dead in minutes. He chuckled without humor and tried to lift his left arm. The pain was searing. Dislocated most likely. Now, even the possibility of saving himself was gone. Well, so be it. If I really die here today and someone finds my body and learns what I did, they'll have to call me a hero, right? It's just... His expression softened, his eyes growing dim. It's just, Isabelle, I really miss you. As the silence settled, Leo's ragged breathing started to even out. But as the adrenaline faded, a new wave of agony washed over him. From his dislocated shoulder and the raw, brutalized muscles in his back where he'd caught the falling rock. HSS, he sucked in a breath through his teeth as cold sweat beaded on his forehead. His back wasn't just bruised, it felt like it had been pulverized. The reason he hadn't felt the worst of it immediately was a cocktail of shock and adrenaline. Now that it was wearing off, the pain was hitting him like a freight train. His breathing grew heavy and labored again. The pain was so intense he felt himself on the verge of blacking out. If he passed out now, he knew he would die in this godforsaken hole. To distract himself, he let his mind drift, and it drifted straight to Isabelle. Images flooded his memory, a highlight reel of their time together. Leo, play Fireboy and Watergirl with me. Leo, you're kind of bad at this. Leo, I want to eat that greasy food truck barbecue. Leo, you're a good person. Leo, see you tomorrow. Be good. Leo, I miss you. Can I come see you? Leo, if you met someone you really, really liked, what would you do? Leo, your less than neighborly intentions are a little obvious. Leo, they're eating cotton candy. I want some too. Leo, I really like being with you. Her words echoed in his head, one after another. A lump formed in his throat. He was noticing so many little things he'd missed before. Isabelle, the Ice Queen heiress to everyone else, was just a cute girl who loved video games and street food when she was with him. She trusted no one, yet she had let him, a practical stranger, into her house alone on the first night they met. It was like he had become her entire world. I promised I'd go to New York to see her after this was over, he thought, a bitter smile on his lips. He checked his phone again. Still no signal. Regret washed over him, sharp and suffocating. Why had he been so impulsive? Why had he given away his only chance of survival? He knew it was just the fear of death talking, the weak, desperate part of him, but he needed, to see Isabelle one more time. The pain in his shoulder and back yanked him out of his reverie. Even for a guy who could take a beating, this was unbearable. Huh. His breaths came in short, rapid gasps. The cold sweat had soaked through his clothes. His head lolled to the side, and he passed out against the cold concrete. On the mountainside, the rescue team was still working frantically to clear the road. It's through. We broke through. Go. Rescue personnel, grab your first aid kits and proceed on foot. Two teams stay behind to widen the path for the supply vehicles. Hearing the shout, Kevin's head snapped up. He dropped his shovel and took off, sprinting up the mountain. 3 years of track and field training kicked in as he pushed himself to his absolute limit. He ran for over 10 minutes without stopping, finally reaching the village. The once lively community was now a scene of utter devastation. Dust hung in the air, and everywhere he looked, there were the skeletal remains of collapsed homes. Twisted rebar poked out from piles of brick and rubble. Smoke still lingered in some places. Survivors huddled near the ruins, their faces blank with shock. Some were injured, staring numbly at what used to be their homes. Old women sat on the ground, weeping and muttering the names of lost loved ones. Those with minor injuries were already clawing at the debris with their bare hands, trying to free anyone still trapped. Leo, Kevin screamed, his voice raw. Leo. He spotted Don Fields at the far end of the village and ran toward him. As he got closer, he saw that Don's head was bleeding. Several other members of the Foundation staff were injured too, some of them moaning in pain on the ground. Mr. Fields, where's Leo? Where's he? Mr. Shion. Don mumbled, his eyes dazed and unfocused. He hadn't recovered from the shock. Kevin had no time for politeness. He grabbed Don by the shoulders, his voice cracking with desperation. "Where is Leo? Tell me where he is." "Mister." "Yeah, Jaeger is." Don sluggishly raised a hand and pointed toward a massive pile of rubble. He went to the backyard to use the restroom. "He's buried. Under there." His head injury was clearly taking its toll. As he spoke, he saw the uniformed rescue workers arriving at the village entrance. The last of his strength gave out, and he collapsed. "Damn it," Kevin cursed. He scrambled toward the spot Don had pointed to, fell to his knees, and started tearing at the concrete with his bare hands. "Leo, Leo, can you hear me?" he screamed. "It's me, Kevin. I'm here to get you out. If you can hear me, make some noise. Just don't you dare fall asleep. You hear me? Leo, Leo, buddy. Leo, Leo, Leo." In a hazy fog, Leo heard someone calling his name. He struggled to open his eyes. When he saw who was standing in front of him, he froze. A split second later, the tears he'd held back for a lifetime came pouring out. "Mom, Dad." Leo's voice was a raw, choked whisper. He couldn't believe his eyes. He was seeing his parents, who had been dead for nearly 2 decades. His lips trembled as he looked at their loving, worried faces. They had died in a car crash when he was 2. His only memories of them were from old photographs. But seeing them now, he felt a connection so deep it was etched into his soul. Ethan Jaeger smiled at him, reaching out to touch his face. "Wendy, look at him. Our little Leo is all grown up. He's even taller than his old man now." "He is his mother." "Wendy, you," said, her eyes shining with adoration. She stepped forward and gently wrapped her arms around him as he sat weeping on the ground. "Leo, you must have gone through so much all these years without us." A gut-wrenching sob tore from his chest. He, who hadn't cried in years, broke down completely in his mother's embrace. All the loneliness, the mistreatment at his aunt's house, the years of longing, it all came pouring out. He clung to her, terrified this dream would vanish. "It wasn't hard," he choked out. "It wasn't hard at all, Mom. I missed you guys so much. I wished every day that I could see you again, even just for a second." Wendy gently patted his back, comforting him just like she must have when he was a baby. Her own eyes were shimmering with tears. Ethan stepped forward and hugged them both. After a long while, Leo's sobs subsided. He pulled away from his mother and looked down at his arm. It was still injured, but he felt no pain. He looked around. Everything was bathed in a brilliant white light. He realized what was happening. He must have passed out from the pain. Or maybe he was already dead. Ethan seemed to read his mind. He placed a rough hand on Leo's head and ruffled his hair. "Leo, you don't belong here. You have to go back. Kevin and that Thorn girl, they're still waiting for you." Leo looked up at his father, surprised. "Dad, how do you know about Isabelle?" When he chuckled softly, "Silly boy, didn't you bring her to the cemetery to visit us? Your father and I saw her. She even told us a few secrets." "Mom, what did she tell you?" Leo asked instinctively. Ethan shook his head and smiled. "You can't stay here with us, son. You have to go back. If you want to know what she said, you'll have to ask her yourself." Leo didn't want to leave. Even if this was all a dream, he didn't want it to end. He reached out, desperate to hug them one more time. But the moment his fingertips brushed against his father's hand, an excruciating pain shot through his shoulder and back. His vision blurred, and the images of his parents began to fade. "Dad, Mom, don't make me go. Let me hold you again. I miss you. I really miss you." He cried out, fresh tears streaming down his face. "You never even come to me in my dreams." Wendy waved at him, but then her eyes fell to his feet, and a tear finally escaped, rolling down her cheek. His shoelaces, they were tied all wrong, because he'd never had anyone to teach him how. She knelt in front of him, wiping her eyes. "Leo," she whispered, "after Mommy ties your shoes, you have to go back. Be good." He found he couldn't move. He could only watch as she knelt and carefully retied his laces. It reminded him of something he'd read once. "My parents were short. When I was a child and they tied my shoes, they were shorter than me. When I grew up, their backs were bent and they were still shorter than me. And in the end, when I knelt on the ground, they were still shorter than me." When he finished and slowly stood up, she kissed his forehead gently, her eyes red. "Go back, Leo. We love you." "Mom, Dad, I love you too," Leo screamed. But in an instant, they were gone. The white light vanished. He was back in the suffocating darkness, the searing pain in his shoulder, and back a brutal confirmation that he was still trapped. There were no parents. It had all been a hallucination, a final, beautiful dream before death. He wiped his tears and checked his phone. For percent battery. Still no signal. It had been almost 3 hours since the first quake. He felt a profound sense of despair. The cruel reality of his situation hadn't changed. He took a deep, shuddering breath, the pain a constant reminder of his hopeless predicament. I have to live. What kind of ending is this? He thought, trying to rally himself. He thought of Isabelle, of how much she relied on him. It was the only thing keeping him going. He shifted, trying to find a less painful position, and scanned the tiny space for any chance of escape. There was none. The aftershock had sealed him incompletely. He couldn't even stand up. He gave up on self-rescue and picked up a broken piece of brick, banging it against the ground. If someone outside could hear him, there was a chance. He banged until his hand was raw and bloody, but there was no response. It was as if he were the last person on earth. He felt a familiar dizziness creeping back. But this wasn't from pain. It was a draining, life-sapping weakness. Then he felt something warm and wet beneath him. He looked down and saw a dark, spreading pool of crimson. Blood. He reached a hand back and touched his back. When he brought it into the dim light of his phone, his heart turned to ice. It wasn't just bruised. He had a deep gash. It hadn't stopped bleeding. The dizziness. He was going into shock from blood loss. BZZ, his phone vibrated. He looked at it, a wild surge of hope that he had a signal. But the screen crushed his spirit completely. Low battery 1% remaining. Are you kidding me? He rasped, a bitter laugh catching in his throat. I thought disaster was always supposed to be one step behind me. This is it. I'm really going to die. His vision was blurring. He knew his life was about to end along with his phone's battery. With the last of his strength, as the screen flickered, he typed and sent a message he never had the courage to say to her face. I love you. In the final second before he lost consciousness, a miracle happened. The screen flashed, message sent. Leo. He thought he heard her crying his name. You idiot. Next time, you better find me sooner. The moment the private jet landed, Isabelle and Lester were in a prearranged car, speeding toward the Black Fork region. Throughout the ride, Isabelle kept dialing Leo's number, only to be met with the same automated voice. Tears streamed relentlessly down her face. Lester watched her, his heart aching. He had never seen his young miss like this. All her composure, her maturity gone. He had seen the news. He knew Leo was in grave danger. It had already been 2 hours since the earthquake. The window for rescue was closing fast. Anyone still trapped was likely. He couldn't finish the thought. For Isabelle's sake, he had to offer some hope. Miss, don't worry. Mr. Yeager is a lucky man. He'll be all right. Isabelle just shook her head, sobbing, urging the driver to go faster, faster. BZZ, BZ, BZ. Her phone vibrated. Her eyes widened, thinking it was Leo. She snatched it up. Dad. Her heart sank. She was supposed to be at the Sailors Club with him and the shareholders right now. Instead, for Leo, she had stood him up for the first time in her life. She'd already ignored 2 of his calls before boarding the plane. She hesitated, then declined the call again. A moment later, Lester's phone rang. He stiffened, looking at Isabelle with a questioning gaze. Miss, it's your father. Should I? Don't answer it, she said, her voice sharp and final. Lester froze, his expression conflicted. While he was Isabelle's driver, Richard Thornton was still his boss. Not answering this call would have consequences. But then he looked at Isabelle, so completely undone, and made his choice. He declined the call, and then, resolutely, turned his phone off. So be it, he thought. I'm near retirement age anyway. It's an honor to help the young miss one last time. He looked out the window at the dark sky and whispered, Don't worry, madam. Wherever she goes, I'll be with her. The number you have dialed has been turned off. Please try again later. Hearing the message, Richard Thornton's face darkened. He had intended to have a simple dinner with his daughter and the shareholders, but she never showed. Her phone went unanswered. Then his secretary had called. Sir, the head of maintenance for the private fleet just informed me that Miss Thornton and Lester took a flight to the Ozarks. The Ozarks? When did they book it? He said there was no booking, sir. The young miss just. Absurd. Richard was already on edge from the company's recent losses. And now his daughter, who had agreed to the dinner, had just up and flown to the middle of nowhere, without booking, without even telling him. The shareholders were already there, so he couldn't leave. He'd endured the meal, and now he was at the private hospital where Sharon was staying. He tried Isabelle's phone again. Nothing. He tried Lester. The first call was declined. The second went straight to voicemail. Lester, you fool. You're enabling this madness. Richard roared. His own driver, a man who had been with him for years, had rejected his call. It felt like a slap in the face. On the bed, Sharon had pieced together what was happening. She was shocked but also conflicted. She never imagined Isabelle would risk exposing Leo to her father. Now, Sharon's leverage, the threat of revealing Leo's existence, was gone. To avoid looking suspicious, she quickly formulated a new plan. Richard, she began thoughtfully, Isabelle rushing off to the Ozarks like this. I think it's because of a boy. What are you talking about? Richard's brow furrowed. Sharon pursed her lips. Isabelle is dating a boy from her university. Her going there so suddenly must mean something has happened to him. Isabelle is dating someone, and you knew about this? Richard was first surprised, then angry that his wife had kept this from him. Sharon gently touched his chest. Richard, she's grown up. It's normal for her to date. The reason I didn't tell you was because the boy's family is a bit more ordinary. I wanted to observe him first, to see if he was good to her, if he had ambition. I was waiting for the right time. I never expected something like this to happen. Richard's temper flared. I don't object to her dating, but to abandon her own father for some boy? What has she become? He was about to hurl his phone across the room, but stopped when he saw Sharon's pregnant belly. He took a few deep breaths. Since you knew about this relationship, you must have information on this boy. Leo, where the hell are you? Say something. You are not allowed to die in here. Kevin was on his knees in the rubble, heaving aside concrete and bricks, his voice raw with desperation. He'd been digging for nearly 30 minutes and had found nothing. Worse, now that the road was clear and the main rescue team had arrived, the initial rush of pulling survivors from the wreckage was slowing. The deeper they dug, the fewer living people they found. The bodies they were recovering were crushed beyond recognition. Despair was setting in. He was terrified that the next person he uncovered would be Leo's cold, lifeless body. The rescue personnel were starting to move on, carrying the injured on stretchers down mountain. The number of people digging was dwindling. Don't go. There's still someone here. Someone is still buried here. Kevin shouted at a uniformed officer. The man wiped sweat from his brow, his face etched with exhaustion and pity. He patted Kevin's shoulder. Son, we've searched this whole area with the dogs. We're certain there are no more survivors here. The collapse was too severe. Even if someone is still down there, it's likely. No. Kevin cut him off, refusing to hear the words. Just dig a little more. You have to find him. You have to. The officer just sighed and shook his head. I'm sorry. We don't have the manpower. We have to prioritize treating the survivors we've already found. We can't waste time on a site that's been cleared. It's not cleared. He's here. I know he's here. Just dig. Don't leave. Kevin screamed. But the officer had already turned away. Kevin collapsed onto the rubble, his energy gone. He stared at his bloody, shredded hands as tears of frustration streamed down his face. He knew he couldn't do this alone. Even if Leo was right under him, he'd be too late. He was about to force himself to start digging again when a set of powerful headlights cut through the darkness. Nearly a dozen heavy-duty off-road vehicles roared up to the edge of the village. The doors flew open, and a team of people in professional rescue gear, carrying specialized equipment, jumped out. From the lead vehicle, a slender figure emerged and ran straight toward him. Kevin stared, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. Isabelle. She ran toward him, stumbling over the uneven ground, falling once but scrambling back up immediately. She reached him, her voice a trembling, tear-choked whisper. Leo? Where's he? Have you found him? Kevin shook his head, his own eyes red. Not yet. The rescuers said there's no one else here. They all left. It's just me. Isabelle's face went white. She looked at the mountain of debris, her expression crumbling, and then she fell to her knees and began clawing at the rocks with her bare hands. Leo. Leo. I'm here. It's me, Isabelle. It's your girlfriend. Please just hold on. You have to hold on. You promised you would never lose me. Lester, who had followed her, immediately barked orders at the team from the trucks. Everyone, over here. Bring the equipment. $500,000 to the first person who finds Mr. Yeager. The privately hired team swarmed the area, their professional tools making quick work of the heavy debris. As Isabelle dug frantically, she felt a vibration from her pocket. She pulled out her phone. At that exact moment, a notification sound chimed. A new text message. I love you from Leo. Her body went rigid. She staggered backward a few steps, her strength giving out completely, and collapsed onto the rubble. A look of utter, soul-crushing despair filled her eyes as tears flooded down her cheeks. And then, everyone present, Kevin, Lester, the entire rescue team, heard a sound they would never forget. A scream of such raw, heartbreaking anguish that it seemed to tear a hole in the night itself. Leo. As her cry echoed through the ruined village, Lester's voice suddenly cut through the air. Mr. Yeager. I found him. It's Mr. Yeager. Someone help me. Get this slab off of him. It's Mr. Yeager. Isabelle and Kevin whipped their heads around. Beneath a massive stone slab that Lester had just managed to shift, a boy lay slumped against the rocks, covered in blood. A phone was clutched tightly in his hand. His eyes were closed. Beep, beep, beep. Leo opened his eyes. A bright white light stabbed at them, and he instinctively tried to raise a hand to block it, but sharp pain in his arm stopped him. He squeezed his eyes shut, then slowly opened them again, letting them adjust. After a few seconds, he could see. He turned his head slightly. Unfamiliar medical equipment surrounded him. The steady beeping was coming from one of the machines. He turned his head the other way and saw Kevin slumped over in a chair next to his bed, fast asleep. Leo's mouth was dry. His voice came out as a weak, raspy whisper. Kevin. Kevin stirred, grumbling. He rubbed his eyes and lifted his head. When he saw Leo was awake, he stared for a second, then shot to his feet. Leo, you're awake. Oh, thank God. You're awake, he exclaimed, nearly knocking his chair over. He looked at Leo, and his eyes immediately welled up. You scared the hell out of me, man, he choked out. I really thought you were. You were going to die. Seeing Kevin so worked up, a faint smile touched Leo's lips. Quick, take a picture, he rasped. This is the first time I've ever seen you cry. Kevin let out a choked laugh and wiped his eyes. Screw you. You're one tough bastard to kill. You know that. Of course, Leo managed. I'm a college student. Just then, the hospital room door opened gently. The door creaked open, and Isabelle appeared. Her beautiful face was drawn and exhausted, her eyes red and swollen from crying. She froze in the doorway, staring at him as if he were a ghost. When it finally registered that he was truly awake, her eyes filled with fresh tears. She stumbled toward the bed and collapsed into his arms, sobbing. Even with Kevin standing right there, her usual cool-headed composure was completely gone. Seeing her again, Leo was overcome with an emotion he couldn't name. He opened his mouth to speak, but found himself wanting to cry instead. He had no memory of his rescue, only the faint, dreamlike echo of her voice calling his name as he slipped into darkness. He looked down at her, his heart aching. He raised his good arm to stroke her hair, but even that small movement sent a jolt of pain through him, and he winced. Isabelle immediately pulled back, her face a mask of alarm. Don't move. Don't move. I'll go get the doctor. Before he could say a word, she was gone, rushing out of the room. Kevin slapped his forehead. Ugh, what an idiot. I was so excited to see you awake. I completely forgot to call a doctor. You've been unconscious for almost 4 days. That long. Leo was shocked. It didn't feel like he'd been in a long dream, the way it happened in the movies. It felt like he'd been out for a few minutes at most. But considering he nearly bled to death, waking up at all after just 4 days was a miracle. While Isabelle was gone, Leo noticed the bandages wrapped around Kevin's hands. A guess began to form in his mind. Was it you? He asked quietly. Did you dig me out? Kevin looked at his hands and gave a bitter laugh. I wish. When the quake hit, I was at Clara's. I got her and her dad out, then ran straight for your village. But the roads were blocked by a landslide. I ran into the rescue team and helped them clear a path. By the time I got to the village, I dug where Don told me you were. I dug for a long time, but I couldn't find you. The rescuers said they had to prioritize the other survivors. They said there was no one left where I was digging. I was starting to lose hope. Even if you were there, I knew I couldn't have gotten you out by myself. Leo frowned. So it was the rescue team that found me? Kevin shook his head. No, I was about to pass out from exhaustion when Isabelle and Lester showed up. They came with a whole fleet of SUVs, filled with a professional search and rescue team she hired. They just started digging right where I was. As soon as she got out of the car, she ran over, crying, and started digging with her bare hands. He shuddered slightly. And then, do you remember that last text you sent her? She got it right then. I swear, Leo, the sound she made. I've never heard anyone scream like that. It felt like my own heart was breaking just listening to it. But right after that, Lester and his team found you. The doctors said if they'd been a few minutes later, you would have suffocated, even if you hadn't bled out. So yeah, it was Isabelle. She saved you. Isabelle brought people to rescue me? How was she even the Ozarks? Leo was stunned. He had imagined 1,000 scenarios for his rescue, but he never, ever would have guessed that the one to save him would be Isabelle, who should have been hundreds of miles away in New York. Before he could process it, the door opened again. Isabelle returned with several doctors in tow. They gave him a thorough examination before turning to her. Miss Thornton, the patient is stable. His back wound is significant, so he'll need to stay for observation. And he lost a lot of blood, so he'll be weak for a while. But with rest, he should make a full recovery. Okay, Isabelle nodded, her eyes full of pain and relief, never leaving Leo's face. As the doctors were leaving, one of them glanced at Kevin, looked like he wanted to say something, but then thought better of it and left. After they were gone, Leo had Kevin help him sit up. He managed a weak smile for Isabelle. Stop crying. Your eyes are all red. You won't be pretty anymore if you keep crying. I don't care if I'm not pretty, she mumbled, her lower lip trembling. You're not allowed to lose me. You said you loved me. The tears she'd been holding back began to fall again. Kevin shielded his eyes dramatically. All right, I'm out of here. Don't want to be a third wheel. I'll go call my parents, let them know you're awake. They drove down as soon as they heard about the earthquake. They're at a hotel nearby. He muttered his way out of the room, closing the door behind him. Leo watched him go, then turned his gaze back to Isabelle. She let out a small sob and stood beside his bed, her lip jutting out in a pout. She clearly wanted to hug him, but was afraid of hurting him. Instead, she just held his hand, her grip tight and a little desperate. You almost left me, she whispered. When you sent me that message. Were you giving up? No, it wasn't about giving up. I'd already done everything I could. So you sent a message like that? Yeah, I didn't want to have any regrets, he said, his heart fluttering as he remembered the text. Isabelle looked up at him, her eyes shining with a million emotions, hope, fear, and boundless love. Her lips parted slightly. Then, I want to hear you say it to me now. I love you. Huh? Isabelle froze, her eyes meeting Leo's, which were filled with an earnest, deep affection. A hot blush instantly flooded her cheeks. She hadn't expected him to say it so directly. She thought those were words he would only say in a moment of utter desperation. Now, it was her turn to be flustered. Her face crimson, Isabelle looked down, her fingers twisting the hem of her shirt. It was a long moment before she finally mumbled, I thought you would at least hesitate. She looked up, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears, but a blissful smile played on her lips. Leaning close to his ear, she whispered, I love you too. I always have. I love you too, Leo. I really do. Hearing her words, spoken as sincerely as she felt them, a warmth spread through Leo's chest. In the past, he might have felt awkward saying I love you in a setting like this. It felt too formal, too heavy. But after staring death in the face, all that self-consciousness had vanished. A wave of warmth washed over him. Once he'd steadied himself, he asked the question that had been nagging at him. By the way, Kevin told me how I was rescued. Why were you in the Ozarks? Weren't you supposed to be in New York? When I saw the news about the earthquake, I tried calling you, but it wouldn't go through. So I called Kevin, and he told me. You were buried. Lester and I got on a plane to the Ozarks immediately. A private jet? Yeah. Leo wasn't surprised. For her to have arrived at the scene so quickly, it was impossible that a commercial flight had just happened to be available. The only explanation was a private flight. He'd seen news reports about Thornton Industries owning a corporate jet for executive emergencies. Wait a second, Leo said suddenly, his expression turning serious. He looked at her with deep concern. So, the jet belongs to your father's company. Normally, he'd be notified if anyone used it. Does this mean your dad and your stepmother know about me now? Isabelle's expression didn't flicker. She calmly shook her head. My dad's been really busy lately. He doesn't know. Sharon is in the hospital, waiting for her due date. She definitely doesn't know. Really? MHM. As she spoke, Isabelle subconsciously tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, her face a perfect mask of innocence. Seeing this, Leo finally nodded, relieved. It wasn't that he was afraid of her father knowing he existed. That was inevitable. And as her boyfriend, what kind of man would he be if he was afraid of her father finding out? He was just worried that if Richard Thornton found out under these circumstances, he might put Isabelle on lockdown. Given what she told him about her father, it was a definite possibility. Thank God he hadn't found out this time. Just then, Isabelle's phone buzzed. She pulled it out, glanced at the caller ID, and her expression shifted almost imperceptibly before she silenced the call. Why didn't you answer? It was just Lester, Isabelle said with a small smile. Probably asking what I want for lunch. She turned the question to him. What do you feel like eating? You've been on in 4-drip for days. I wasn't hungry until you mentioned it, Leo admitted. He thought for a moment. Some soup dumplings would be good. I'll go get them for you then. No need to bother Lester. She smiled at him and turned to leave. But as she reached the door, Leo called out to her. Wait, change your mind about what to eat? Isabelle asked, blinking innocently. Lying in the hospital bed, Leo slowly shook his head. He was silent for a moment before speaking. When the doctor was in here earlier, he said I'd had a blood transfusion and that my body is still weak. I knew I'd lost a lot of blood before I passed out, so a transfusion was a given. But by the time they got me from the mountain to a hospital, I would have been dead. So they must have given me blood on site, right? It's just... He paused, glancing toward the door before continuing. There were a lot of other injured people rescued before me. Even if there were medics there, the blood supply must have been depleted. So, if I'm not mistaken, the person who gave me blood, it was Kevin, wasn't it? Isabelle's eyes widened slightly, her expression complicated. She couldn't believe he'd figured it out. After a moment, she bit her lip and answered in a low voice, "Yes. Kevin told me not to tell you." "I wouldn't have known," Leo said, a faint smile on his face, though his heart was overflowing with warmth. "But after the doctor warned me about being weak from the transfusion," he glanced at Kevin on his way out. "It was just a small detail, but it wasn't hard to connect the dots. That knucklehead happens to have the same blood type as me." When he'd asked Kevin about the rescue, Kevin had given all the credit to Isabelle, mentioned that Lester had found him first, and even praised the search and rescue team. But he had conveniently skipped over the most critical part, giving his own blood to save Leo's life. Isabelle looked confused. "If you already figured it out, why didn't you just ask him about it?" "He would have denied it. He's been like that since we were kids," Leo said with a soft laugh. "Look, both of you are the most important people in my life. If he doesn't want to talk about it, I'll pretend I don't know. But I'll find ways to be twice as good to him." He grinned. Okay, now go give me those soup dumplings. I'm starving." "Okay." Isabelle nodded and left the room. The moment she stepped into the hallway, she paused, her expression becoming impossibly complex. Leo's last words. It was as if he were talking about Kevin, but also about her. If he could deduce who gave him blood from such a tiny detail, then he must have also seen right through the lie she had just told him in the hospital room. Isabelle's eyes filled with tears. She pulled out her phone. On the screen, the call she had just silenced wasn't from Lester. The contact name read, "Dad." Isabelle stared at the rejected call, her feelings a tangled mess. Her father had called several times while Leo was unconscious. She knew, without a doubt, that he was now aware of Leo's existence. The moment she answered, she'd be met with a barrage of reprimands, first for skipping the dinner at the Sailors Club, then an interrogation about her relationship. So, she had ignored his calls, asking Lester to pass on the message that she was busy with other matters in the Ozarks. Isabelle had expected her father to fly over from New York in a rage, but that hadn't happened. To her surprise, Lester had informed her that several new projects at the company had run into trouble. As chairman, her father couldn't spare the time to come personally. It was because of that lucky break that she'd been able to stay by Leo's side. And now he was awake. With that thought, Isabelle first went to a small restaurant outside the hospital to buy the soup dumplings, then called Lester. "Hello, miss. Leo's awake." The relief in Lester's voice was palpable. "That's wonderful news, miss. Is Mr. Yeager's condition stable? You can finally rest easy." Isabelle paused for a moment before replying. "Yes. Is my father still busy? The chairman should have most things under control by now. If we don't return to New York soon, I'm afraid he will come to the Ozarks himself." Lester knew what she was thinking, but for the sake of the bigger picture, he had to advise her. "Miss, I believe you should return to New York now. It's not just about your long-term plans, but also a way to protect Mr. Yeager. Knowing the chairman's temperament, if he comes here, he will insist on meeting Mr. Yeager. That would expose him completely, and your future with him." "I understand, Lester." "Book the flights back to New York," Isabelle interrupted. After ending the call, a sense of loss washed over her. Leo was still in the hospital. As his girlfriend, she was supposed to be there for him, but reality wouldn't allow it. She didn't care if her own plans were disrupted. She cared that if her father met Leo now, it would create an insurmountable obstacle for their future. If she defied him, he might even go after Leo's studio. Thinking of that, she knew she had to make a choice. She had to go back. She couldn't let her personal life deal a fatal blow to the studio Leo had worked so hard to build. "Miss, your soup dumplings." "Thank you." Isabelle took the container from the shop owner and headed back to the hospital. Meanwhile, in a private hospital room in New York City, Sharon Thornton's personal driver stood before her bed, his tone respectful. "Ma'am, the chairman has finished dealing with the urgent matters. Ms. Rochelle sent me a message saying he's asked her to book a flight to the Ozarks for tomorrow." "So soon?" Sharon's eyebrows shot up, her expression turning stormy. Ever since she learned that Isabelle had recklessly taken Lester to the Ozarks for Leo, she knew the secret of their relationship was out. So, that same day, facing Richard Thornton, a new idea had sparked in her mind, a way to accelerate her plan to seize control of Thornton Industries. That evening, Sharon had instructed several project managers she had personally cultivated to intentionally create work errors, plunging their projects into a major crisis. She knew Richard's personality. If Isabelle did something against his wishes, he would almost certainly drop everything to handle it personally. Furthermore, Sharon had made a point to reveal to Richard that Isabelle's boyfriend was an ordinary young man, an orphan with no family to speak of. She had been certain that Richard, upon hearing this, would be furious enough to fly to the Ozarks immediately. That would give her the perfect excuse to send her own people to resolve the project crises. It was a golden opportunity to install a few more of her loyalists into key positions at Thornton Industries. However, things hadn't gone according to plan. Faced with a choice between his daughter and his company, Richard had chosen to stay behind and personally oversee the failing projects. He'd even fired several of Sharon's key people. Her plan had completely unraveled. Now, lying in her hospital bed, Sharon's expression shifted unpredictably. After a long moment, she let out a dismissive laugh. "I overestimated him," she said, her voice dripping with contempt. "I always thought his and Catherine's daughter was so important to him. But when it came down to his own interests versus his daughter, he chose his interests without a moment's hesitation." The driver, Jonathan, paused, then asked cautiously, "In that case, ma'am, your plan?" Sharon sneered. "It doesn't matter. All I lost were a few disposable assets. I can always promote a few more. It's no great loss. In fact, this incident has made me feel much more at ease. The more he proves he only cares about himself, the less guilt I feel." She paused, her tone softening as her gaze shifted to Jonathan. "Jonathan, you're the person I trust most right now. There are some things that only the two of us know. I hope you won't disappoint me. By the way, I heard you were in the military? You must know some capable men who've fallen on hard times. See if you can get in touch with them for me. Tell them Sharon Thornton is offering them a job that will set them up for life." A jolt went through Jonathan's heart. He knew exactly what she was implying. But in the end, he simply nodded respectfully. "Understood, ma'am." Sharon asked, her smile unwavering. "Repeat it for me." Jonathan hesitated for a second before lowering his voice. "I was telling you, ma'am, that I have a few brothers in arms, very capable men, who are struggling. I was hoping you could offer them a job." "You agreed, ma'am, and I will get on it as soon as possible." Hearing his response, Sharon smiled with genuine satisfaction. She waved a dismissive hand, signaling he could leave. Jonathan nodded and closed the door softly behind him. "Leo, I'm back, whoa. On second thought, maybe I should just go." Kevin pushed the door open excitedly, carrying a takeout bag, only to walk in on Isabelle feeding Leo. He froze, looking as if he'd been struck by lightning. "Damn it, I'm too late." Leo just chuckled. "Don't go, knucklehead. There's another container here. Want some?" "Screw you." Kevin slammed the door shut and stomped away. Once again, the room was quiet, with just Leo and Isabelle inside. Leo hadn't intended for her to feed him. His injuries were on his back, and his dislocated arm had been reset. He was perfectly capable of eating, but Isabelle had insisted. After they finished, Leo looked at her seriously. "You've been here in the Ozarks for days. Your dad really hasn't noticed you've been gone from New York." Isabelle bit her lip and shook her head slightly. She opened her mouth as if to say something, but hesitated, the words catching in her throat. Leo had a pretty good idea of what was going on. He asked gently, "You have to go back tonight, don't you?" "Yeah," Isabelle whispered, her head bowed, avoiding his gaze. Her disappointment was palpable. A hollow feeling opened in Leo's chest. He wanted to reach out and hold her, but he was afraid of pulling his stitches. In the end, he just raised a hand and gently ruffled her hair. "Then you should go. Don't make your father angry. I asked the doctor while you were out. He said my wounds are scabbing over nicely. I'll be out of here in a week at most. As soon as I'm discharged, I'll come to New York to find you. It's a few days later than we planned, but I promise I'll be there." Isabelle slowly lifted her head, her eyes glistening. She sniffled, trying to hold back the tears, but the sight of Leo's smiling face made them spill over. "But you don't have any other family," she cried softly. "You're in the hospital. I should be here with you, but I can't. I don't want to go back to New York. I'm afraid something else will happen to you if I leave. I'm so scared of losing you, and even more scared that it'll be my fault." Hearing her choked words, a sharp pain lanced through Leo's heart. He had never seen her so insecure. He knew why, but since she wouldn't say it, he wouldn't push. Ignoring the stinging protest from his back, Leo gently pulled her into an embrace, his voice warm and steady. "You silly girl. The earthquake was a freak accident. I'm in a hospital now. What could possibly happen? I'm not going to lose you, and you're not going to lose me. Besides, even if I don't have other family, I've still got Kevin, right? You're acting like that knucklehead doesn't even count." Leaning against his chest, Isabelle's tears soaked into his hospital gown. "When I go back," she sobbed, "you have to video call me every day." "No problem. Anytime you miss me, we'll call." She looked up, her face tear-streaked. "But I miss you every second that I'm not with you." Her words struck the softest part of his heart. A lump formed in his throat, and he found he couldn't speak. He just held her tighter, For a long, long time. At 4 in the afternoon, Isabelle looked at Leo, her reluctance plain to see. Leo, I have to go. Lester's waiting for me. Okay, go on then. Don't keep him waiting too long. Text me when you land in New York. MHM. She agreed, but she still clung to his hand, showing no sign of leaving. Leo pouted. This isn't some life-or-death farewell, and it's not like we're starting a long-distance relationship for years. I'll be in New York in a week, tops. It's just 1 week. Think of it this way. If we take a 1-week break from our lip service, it'll feel completely different when we finally get to it again. Isabelle couldn't help but blush. She nodded and finally stood up. Before leaving, she leaned down and planted a soft kiss on his forehead. Then, you have to come find me, she said, her voice impossibly gentle. I will. Okay, I'm going now. She took one last, long look at him before turning and walking away. The reason she was so reluctant was that she had no idea what kind of storm was waiting for her when she faced her father back in New York. After Isabelle left, the smile on Leo's face quickly faded. He stared out the window, a somber expression settling over him. He wasn't an idiot. No matter how busy her father was, he had to go home sometime. And even if he didn't, a mansion like the one Isabelle lived in would be full of staff. There was no way her father didn't know she'd been gone for days. He knew Isabelle hadn't told him the truth because she didn't want him to worry, didn't want him to feel guilty. But the more you do that, the guiltier I feel, Leo murmured with a bitter smile. He knew, after this, that he had to accelerate Starfall's growth. He had to do it faster. That evening, the door to his room opened. Kevin poked his head in first, scanned the room, and seeing that Isabelle was gone, asked, Leo, where's the campus queen? She went back to New York. What? So soon? Kevin said, surprised. Leo nodded. What's with you? Why are you just sticking your head in? Come on in. I was just checking to make sure I wasn't interrupting anything. Since she's gone, we'll take care of you for the next few days while you're here. With that, Kevin stepped fully into the room and called out to the hallway, Mom, Dad, you can come in. Kevin's parents entered, carrying bags of supplies. His mother, especially, took one look at Leo, his upper body wrapped in bandages, and her eyes immediately turned red. She shoved what she was holding into her husband's arms and rushed to Leo's side. She cupped his face in her hands, her voice thick with distress. Oh, Leo, you scared your auntie and uncle half to death. This worthless son of mine, useless when it counts. He said he was going with you for work, and the next thing we know, he's run off to his girlfriend's house. Unbelievable. Ow, Auntie Charlene, I'm okay, really. And it's not Kevin's fault. If it weren't for him, I wouldn't have been rescued so quickly. Auntie Charlene, maybe you could stop squishing my face now. Leo managed to say, his vision blurring from the way Kevin's mother, Charlene Cheong, was manhandling him. Charlene finally let go, but couldn't resist shooting a glare at her son. You brat, you go on a trip with your best friend and abandon him at a critical moment. What's next? After you marry that little girlfriend of yours, are you going to abandon your own mother too? Kevin was aghast. Mom, that's a total lie. If I had known there was going to be an earthquake, I would never have left Leo. All right, dear, it's not our son's fault that Leo got hurt. Don't talk like that in front of the kids, Kevin's father, Harvey Cheong, finally interjected. But Charlene just wiped a tear from the corner of her eye and looked back at Leo, her heart aching. What do you know, Harvey? My heart just breaks for this kid. Wendy and Ethan passed so long ago, and his only living relative is that awful Brenda. If something had happened to him, he'd never have the chance to marry a good girl. If Leo wasn't so stubborn about not letting us be his godparents, I would have raised him as my own son years ago. Hearing Charlene's heartfelt words, a warm current flowed through Leo. Years ago, Charlene and Harvey had offered to become his godparents and have a move-in with them. They were willing to cover all his school and living expenses, treating him just like their own son. But Leo had refused all their kind offers. He felt the Cheong family had already done more than enough for him. Besides, their family hadn't been well off back then. Harvey's business had only recently started to take off. Leo didn't want to be an extra burden. He gave Charlene a warm smile. Auntie Charlene, it's not that I don't want you and Uncle Harvey to be my godparents. I just didn't want to burden you. To be honest, I've always thought of you as my family, and Kevin is the brother I never had. His words only made Charlene cry harder. She lovingly stroked his cheek, sighing, You silly boy, you grew up too fast because you suffered too much. We never thought of you as a burden, but you were always thinking of us. I don't know what to say to you. She paused, then continued. Anyway, let's not talk about this sad stuff. Your uncle and I have decided. We're staying here at the hospital to take care of you until you're discharged. With your injuries, daily life is going to be difficult, and we can't risk you tearing open a wound. Harvey, who had been quiet until now, nodded in agreement. That's right, Leo. You just focus on getting better. Charlene and I will handle everything. Hey, what's going on? That was my idea. How did it become your decision? Kevin looked at his parents, completely bewildered. And why are only you two taking care of him? What about me? Charlene shot him a withering look. You have a nerve to ask? If your father and I hadn't spoiled you rotten your whole life, turning you into a useless lump, would we have to worry about you being able to take care of him? For the next couple of days, you can go find a corner and cool off. Then she muttered under her breath. I honestly don't know what that little girlfriend of yours sees in you. Not as handsome as Leo, a big, dumb knucklehead for a brain, and says whatever pops in his head. Besides being kind-hearted, the boy has not a single redeeming quality. Kevin looked like he was about to cry, completely crushed by his mother's brutal assessment. From the bed, Leo couldn't help but laugh. The heavy mood from worrying about Isabelle had lifted considerably. This was just how Kevin and his mom were. Charlene might criticize her son constantly, but she loved him fiercely. Leo had always envied their easy, affectionate relationship. If his own mother were still alive, maybe they could have been like that, too. After finishing her critique, Charlene took the bag from her husband. The VIP room Isabelle had arranged for Leo came with an extra bed for visitors, and Charlene started making it up, clearly planning to stay for the duration of Leo's recovery. Seeing his son's defeated posture, Harvey walked over and clapped him on the shoulder. Come on, your mom's just talking. The reason we don't want you staying is because you came here to work, right? And to see your girlfriend? Now that Leo's in the hospital, the work is on hold, but you can run the errands. After you're done, go check on your girlfriend. From what I understand, a lot of the houses in the Black Fork region sustained damage. Go see if her family needs any help. At his father's words, the light returned to Kevin's eyes. He nodded emphatically, looking at his dad with gratitude. You're right, Dad. You're always so thoughtful and see the big picture. Not like Mom, calling me a big, dumb knucklehead. I might not be as smart as Leo, but I'm not an idiot, you know? Harvey's face darkened. He smacked Kevin on the back of the head. Smart my ass. You think your pig brain would have come up with that if I hadn't spelled it out for you? You useless thing. Now get out of here. Kevin clutched his chest, shot Leo an exaggerated "I'm broken man" look, and left the room. A few seconds later, he rushed back in. Right, Leo, mister. Fields has a head injury and can't coordinate with us anymore. Who do I talk to about the donation stuff now? You go to the charity's local office, explain the situation, and see who they assign to us next. Oh, where's their office? A muscle in Leo's jaw twitched. I seem to recall pointing it out to you on our way to the mountains. Kevin scratched his head sheepishly. Haha, I was busy talking to Clara. I didn't notice. Spring Creek Road. Got it. Kevin saluted and bolted out the door. His parents watched him go, utterly speechless. Harvey let out a long sigh. Charlene, I'm a reasonably successful businessman. How did I end up with a son who's such a blockhead? Are you sure this kid is ours? Charlene's eyebrows shot into her hairline. She stomped over to Harvey and, ignoring Leo in the room, grabbed her husband's ear. What's that supposed to mean, Harvey? Are you accusing me of having an affair? Ow. Honey, have some mercy, Leo's still here. Watching the two of them, Leo laughed, genuinely happy. After Kevin left that afternoon, Leo sat up in bed and plugged in his dead phone. The moment the screen lit up, it began buzzing and vibrating nonstop. It took a full minute for the barrage of notifications to quiet down. He unlocked the screen to find dozens of missed calls and texts. His messaging apps were flooded, showing 99+ notifications. He checked his call log first. The earliest calls were from Isabelle and Kevin, clearly from when he was still buried under the rubble. After those were several calls from Ruby Yu and Sean Shao. He instinctively assumed they were calling about Starfall Studios. Instead of calling back immediately, he checked his texts. To his surprise, he realized Ruby and Sean weren't calling about work at all. Ruby, Leo, we all saw the news. We contacted the charity. Are you okay? Please, call us back and let us know you're safe when you see this. Leo, why aren't you texting back? Don't scare me. Sean, Leo, there was an earthquake where you are. Are you all right? Ruby and I have been trying to call, but can't get through. I'm hoping it's just bad signal because of the earthquake. Please be safe. Mark Zhang, Leo, everyone at the studio saw the news. Sean and Ruby won't tell us anything. Are you okay? You're not answering your phone. You're scaring the hell out of me, man. He saw similar messages on his other apps, all from concerned friends, telling him to get in touch as soon as he could. A wave of warmth spread through him. He hadn't realized so many people cared. Even people he wasn't particularly close to had reached out the moment they heard he might be in danger. Leo took a moment, then began calling them back one by one, telling them he was safe and thanking them for their concern. Finally, He called Ruby and Sean. When he called Ruby's number, he was surprised to hear Quinn Fan and Don Wren in the background. Don, Quinn, come quick. It's Leo calling. Leo? Leo, are you okay? Where are you? The charity told us you were rescued, but we don't know which hospital. Ruby and I got to the Ozarks 2 days ago. Send us your location. We'll come right now. Quinn's voice came through the phone. Leo was stunned. He couldn't believe they had come all the way to the Ozarks for him. After asking Charlene for the hospital's name, he related to them. About half an hour later, the door to his room opened. Quinn, Ruby, and Don stood there, all carrying gift baskets. When Ruby saw Leo lying in bed, his upper body wrapped in bandages, her eyes instantly reddened. Leo, you're finally okay. We've been worried sick about you for 2 days. Ruby said, rushing to his bedside. She placed her basket on the table, her face etched with concern. Quinn sighed, looking at Leo's condition. If we had known there was going to be an earthquake, we never would have let you come. Thank God you're all right. Even the usually stoic Don walked to the bed, his gaze filled with relief. All that matters is you're safe. They say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. When you get out of here, everything you do will be a success. Thank you, Ruby. Thanks, Quinn. Thanks, Don, Leo said, his voice sincere. Before he could say more, Charlene beamed at them. Please sit down. I'll cut some fruit for you all. Thank you so much for coming all the way from Crestview to see our Leo. Tonight, my husband and I will treat you all to hot pot. Ruby and the others looked at Charlene, and Ruby quickly waved her hands. That's very kind of you, ma'am, but we're just glad Leo's okay. Now that we've seen him, we have to catch a flight back to Crestview tonight. We have work to take care of. Nonsense. You're all so young. Don't be such workaholics already. Please, let me treat you to dinner. Really, ma'am, we can't. We've been here for 2 days already, and a lot of work is piled up. Then, Ruby turned to Leo with a smile. Leo, your mom is so sweet. Can you help us explain? They didn't know Leo's family situation and naturally assumed Charlene and Harvey were his parents. Leo didn't bother correcting them. He just gave Charlene a helpless smile. Mom, they really don't have much time. They've already been here for 2 days just to see me. If they don't get back, their work will really get backed up. When I'm discharged and back in Crestview, I'll treat everyone to dinner myself. You and Dad don't have to worry about it, really. When Charlene heard Leo call her and Harvey Mom and Dad, she froze. Her eyes widened as she exchanged a look with her husband, and then her own eyes began to well up. They never thought that Leo, who had so stubbornly refused to call them his godparents for years, would now, in front of strangers, call them Mom and Dad without a second thought. It was just as he'd said earlier. He had always thought of them as family. Charlene subtly wiped a tear from her eye and nodded quickly, her voice bright. Okay, we'll listen to you. Ruby and the others looked on, a little confused by her emotional reaction. Leo didn't explain. He just smiled and chatted with them about the earthquake and the recent progress at Starfall Studios. After catching up on the studio's progress, Leo and his friends discussed work arrangements for the next few days. He learned from Ruby that Sean hadn't come because with the 3 of them gone, someone had to stay behind to manage things in case of an emergency. That makes sense, Leo said with a smile. If Sean had come with you, I'd have been worried about work. He made the right call. The data needs to be monitored daily. If he wasn't there, it would all pile up. Then, he remembered the conversation he'd had with Sean before leaving Crestview, the plan to poach talent from other companies. He looked at Ruby. By the way, before I left, I talked to Sean about recruiting people. While I've been gone, has he made any progress on that? He should have started contacting them by now, right? At the mention of this, the expressions on Ruby, Quinn, and Don's faces shifted. Quinn rubbed his nose. You know what? I need to step outside and call my parents. Something came up at home. Don was silent for a moment before adding, I'm going out for a smoke. With that, both of them hurried out of the room, leaving Ruby alone. Seeing their reactions, Leo knew something was wrong. He calmly turned to Charlene, who was still cutting fruit. Mom, could you and Dad step out for a minute? I need to discuss some work stuff with my friend. Oh, go ahead and talk. We won't bother you, Charlene said, oblivious to the undercurrent of tension. Leo was about to say something else, but Harvey, who had been quietly looking at his phone, stood up. He gave Leo a look that said, I've got this, and then turned to his wife. Honey, come outside with me for a second. I need to tell you something. What is it? Can't you say it in here? Charlene asked, confused. But Harvey didn't give her a chance to argue. He took her by the arm and guided her out of the room, gently closing the door behind them. Now it was just Leo and Ruby. Ruby glanced at the door and muttered under her breath, those 2 cowards. They didn't have the guts to say it, so they just dumped me here to do it. She sighed and turned back to Leo. Leo, I'm sure you've already guessed what Sean did these past few days, haven't you? Leo shook his head, his face impassive, his voice calm. I haven't guessed anything, Ruby. I need you to tell me. Ruby gave a bitter smile. Oh, come on. How could you not have guessed? The day you left Crestview, Sean told the three of us about your plan to poach experienced video editors and scriptwriters. Quinn, Don, and I were all on board with it. Quinn and I are the faces of the main account. We know that besides luck, a viral video depends on the editor's skill and the quality of the script. And Don, as an editor himself, understands how crucial that role is. Leo frowned. If all three of you agreed, why didn't Sean follow through? See? And you said you didn't know anything. Leo paused, realizing he had given himself away. Ruby didn't dwell on it. Sean felt it would add too much to the studio's operating costs. We've only just started turning a profit. If we suddenly took on that much expense and didn't see an immediate return, the studio could go bankrupt. So, even though the three of us agreed with you, he refused to budge. Normally, if you were there, he wouldn't have been able to get away with it. But the next day, so he went behind my back and killed the plan? Ruby nodded grimly. And he got the contact information for those people from Mark Zhang and personally told them that their demands were too high and Starfall couldn't possibly agree. Leo's face instantly darkened. He couldn't believe Sean had gone that far, deliberately severing the connections Mark had already established. And worst of all, he had done it right after hearing that Leo was in danger, likely to ensure Leo couldn't revive the plan when he returned. As the realization sank in, Leo's expression grew colder. It was clear now that Sean hadn't stayed in Crestview just to manage the studio. He was also avoiding this very conversation. Seeing the thunderous look on Leo's face, Ruby tried to soften the blow. Leo, don't be too hard on him. He just wants stability for Starfall. He's not trying to oppose you just for the sake of it. Leo remained silent, his expression unreadable. Ruby tried again. Leo, you have to believe me. After all, Sean was the original founder of Starfall. His desire for the studio to succeed is stronger than anyone's. This time, Leo finally responded, but only with a quiet MHM. He then switched topics, a smile reappearing on his face as he looked at Ruby. Ruby, what time is your flight tonight? Oh, 7. Then you should get going. I should be out of here in about a week. When I get back, I'll take you and the guys out to dinner. Seeing Leo smile, Ruby felt a wave of relief. She smiled back. Okay, well, I hope you get better soon so you can treat us. The two of us will head out then. You get some rest, Leo. Bye. Bye. After Ruby left, the room fell silent once more. The smile on Leo's face vanished instantly. He stared out the window, muttering Sean's name under his breath, his expression unreadable. Just then his phone, lying on the pillow beside him, buzzed with a notification. He glanced down. It was a text from Isabelle. Leo, Lester and I landed safely. Seeing the message, a new resolve hardened in Leo's eyes. Send me a video. I want to see you, Leo texted back. Isabelle's reply came quickly. Why a video? Miss you, Leo answered simply. A moment later, a video arrived. Leo clicked on it eagerly, only to find the screen filled with a pair of legs clad in black stockings. They were impossibly long, posed in a way that made his blood heat up. He shrewdly saved the video before rapidly typing his reply. I'm in a video of your face. What's with the legs? This is an insult to my character. He squinted, admiring the video one more time. TSK. Good thing I'm in a hospital. Otherwise, I might have to go wage a one-man war in the bathroom. Finally, Isabelle replied. Oh, I thought you want to see my legs like usual. Slander. Well, have I ever asked to see your legs? But your phone's photo album is full of pictures of my legs. Leo held his breath, his mind racing. Crap, when did she snoop through my phone? He immediately changed the subject. Don't try to distract me. Send a proper video. Okay. Soon, another video came through. This time, her face filled the screen. Her eyes were curved into a smile, a playful blush on her cheeks. From the background, he could tell she was in a car. The window must have been down, because the wind was gently blowing her hair across her face. He found himself mesmerized. A smile spread across his own face as he was about to type a reply, but suddenly, the door to his room was thrown open. Charlene and Harvey were back. A jolt of panic went through Leo, and he fumbled to lock his phone. In his haste, he accidentally hit the video call button. To make matters worse, Isabelle answered almost instantly. Her flawless face filled the screen, much larger than before. Just then, Charlene walked over to his bedside with a plate of sliced apples. She immediately spotted Isabelle on the screen. Her face broke into a wide, delighted grin. Oh, my dear, you must be our Leo's girlfriend. Harvey, come look. Leo's girlfriend is just gorgeous. Harvey leaned in curiously and was visibly stunned by Isabelle's beauty. On the other end of the call, Isabelle was clearly not expecting an audience. She froze at a loss for words. Leo felt a bit awkward, but cleared his throat and made the introductions. Ahem, this is Kevin's mom and dad. They're here at the hospital, taking care of me. Oh, realizing who they were, Isabelle gave a small, polite smile. It's nice to meet you, sir, ma'am. I'm Leo's girlfriend, Isabelle Thornton. My goodness, you are just so pretty. Well, we'll let you two talk. We won't disturb you, Charlene said, giving her husband a pointed look as they backed out of the room again. Since the call was already connected, Leo figured they might as well talk. They chatted for a while, until he heard Lester's voice in the background. Miss, we're almost home. Leo paused, then said softly, you should go then. Okay, you. Take care of yourself. Isabelle's voice turned incredibly gentle. With that, she hung up. For the rest of his hospital stay, Harvey and Charlene doted on him. They helped him to the bathroom, called the doctors for dressing changes, cut fruit for him, and bought his meals. They treated him not just as their son's best friend, but as their own son. Kevin, meanwhile, took on the responsibility of finalizing the donation work. After coordinating everything with the charity, he went back to the Black Fork region to help Clara's family with repairs. On Leo's last day in the hospital, Clara came to visit him. The delay wasn't for lack of concern. Her family's house had sustained damage in the earthquake, and she'd been busy with repairs. If not for Kevin's help, it would have taken her the entire winter break to finish. Soon, Leo's back was fully scabbed over, and the bandages came off. The doctor instructed him to apply ointment regularly and come in for a checkup once a week. The moment he was discharged, Leo booked a flight back to Crestview. Kevin had wanted to stay in the Ozarks a few more days, but Charlene dragged him away by the ear. You little brat, why don't you just move here permanently? Mom, I just want to help Clara. Charlene cut him off. Don't think I don't know. Clara's family is done with the repairs. What reason do you have to stay now? I'm not against you two dating, but you're just dating. It's not like you're getting married. Hanging around her house every day. What do you think her father and her family will think? You need to have some sense. Know when to be there and when to give space. Don't just smother her with attention. Haven't you ever heard that too much of a good thing can be bad? In the end, Kevin was dragged all the way to the airport. On the plane back to Crestview, he sulked, muttering to Leo, my mom just doesn't want me to be happy. I wasn't even staying at Clara's house, just helping out. Why would her family be upset? Come on, man, she's right, Leo said patiently. You and Clara are just dating. The stuff you're doing is what a son-in-law does, especially in a small town like that. Even if her family doesn't mind you being there all the time, the neighbors will talk. In a place like that, gossip can be brutal. Kevin just looked down, not saying a word. He knew Leo was right, but he was still disappointed. Seeing his friend's dejected look, Leo changed his tone. Besides, you idiot, you should be celebrating, he said with a grin. During that earthquake, you ran back in there without a second thought and carried her dad out. As long as that man has a heart, he knows how serious you are about Clara. And after that, I guarantee you Clara has given you her whole heart. You risked your life to save her father. How could she not be moved? I'd say you not only won her over completely, but you also got the official seal of approval from your future father-in-law. At Leo's words, Kevin's eyes lit up. He scratched the back of his head and let out a loud laugh, which he quickly stifled when a flight attendant shot him a look. Hey Leo, Kevin whispered. Now that I've made this much progress, when are you going to meet the campus queen's dad? Leo paused, his gaze drifting out the window. After a long moment, he said softly soon. The day after he returned to Crestview, Miles was the first to visit. Leo, man, when Kevin told me you guys were in an earthquake, my soul just about left my body, Miles said, looking genuinely guilty. I was so worried about that happening before you left, and then my big mouth jinxed it. I swear, I'm never saying anything like that again. It's fine, man. It's not a big deal, Leo said with a wave of his hand. Natural disasters happen. It has nothing to do with you. He wasn't bothered that Miles hadn't come to the Ozarks. Kevin had explained that Miles had wanted to come immediately, but his grandparents were both in the hospital, and he was the only one there to look after them. After Miles left, Leo rested for a bit before heading across the hall to apartment 1003. Since they'd gotten together, Isabelle had given him a key. He opened the door and took a deep breath, a satisfied smile spreading across his face as he inhaled the faint, unique scent that was purely Isabelle. He slipped on a pair of house slippers and started cleaning. With his back still healing, it took him nearly 2 hours to get the place spotless. When he was done, he took a video, panning around the apartment, and sent it to her. Cleaned your place for you. It'll be just like you left it when you get back. He glanced at the time. It was almost 11 at night. He figured that back at her family's mansion in New York, she'd be under her father's watchful eye and already in bed. He probably wouldn't get a reply until morning. But to his surprise, his phone lit up almost immediately. The maids come every week to clean. You don't have to do that for me. Is it the same when your boyfriend does it versus when the maids do it? What's the difference? Isabelle seemed to be in a good mood, ending her sentences with a playful tone. Leo couldn't help but smile. She could seem so cool and distant, but at times like this, she was utterly adorable. Sitting on her couch, he typed back, "Your boyfriend cleans with love." And he leave a little bit of that love in every corner he cleans. EW. Leo, you're being so cheesy today. He laughed out loud. Okay, that line was pretty cheesy, but it was easier to say things like that over text, things he might be too embarrassed to say to her face. This time, before he could reply, a new message from her came through, a voice note. Leo, is your back feeling better? You didn't pull anything while you were cleaning, did you? Don't worry, I'm fine. I took it slow, he replied with a voice note of his own. After sending it, he played her message back several times, the feeling of missing her almost overwhelming. Since they had officially started dating, they had never been apart for this long. He wasn't used to it. I'll sort out the work backlog at the studio in the next couple of days, then I'll be on my way to New York to see you. Okay, when you get here, I have a gift for you. Leo paused, curious. What kind of gift? It's a secret. In New York, at the Thornton estate. Isabelle ended her conversation with Leo and quickly hid her phone under her pillow. The unconscious smile that had been on her face faded, replaced by a look of sorrow and worry. Her mind drifted back to the day she and Lester had returned from the Ozarks. When she walked through the front door of the mansion, she found her father sitting on the sofa, waiting for her. Isabelle didn't flinch. She walked calmly over to him, lowered her head, and stood in silence, showing no remorse. Her calm demeanor only enraged Richard Thornton further. He slammed his hand on the table. Isabelle, that night of the dinner, if Mr. Sullivan from Flight Division hadn't told me you and Lester had gone to the Ozarks, would I have ever known where you went? Isabelle lifted her head, her expression placid as she met her father's furious gaze. Dad, I don't like those kinds of dinners. I'd much rather have dinner alone with you. Fine, you don't want to have dinner with your uncles. I can understand that. But why did you rush off to the Ozarks? It was for that boyfriend you've been hiding from me, wasn't it? You're in a relationship and you never told me. He paused, his anger mounting. I give you an unlimited allowance. I let you buy whatever you want. And this is how you use the money I worked so hard to earn? Spending it on some penniless nobody? Isabelle, you're still young. You don't understand what a worthless boy like that really wants from you. He wants your beauty. He wants your money. He doesn't have any real feelings for you. He was breathing heavily, glaring at her. Isabelle just stared back, her lips pressed into a thin line. After a long moment, her eyes reddened and filled with tears, but she blinked them back, refusing to let them fall. She shook her head, her voice choked with emotion. Dad, when I was little, before Mom died, whenever I was upset, the first person I thought of wasn't her. It was you. I used to think you would always be there to protect me, that I would be the happiest girl in the world. But after she died, you changed. All you ever cared about was work, work, work. Of course, I want to tell you, I was in a relationship. I wanted you to meet him, to see what you thought. But Dad, did you ever give me the time to tell you? Her voice grew stronger. And Leo is not a worthless nobody. When I had no friends, he introduced me to his, one by one. He patiently taught me how to make friends, how to maintain those relationships. And let's say you're right. Let's say all he wants is my beauty and my money. So what? That warmth he gives me, even if it's fake, is more than enough to make me fall in love with him. Richard was stunned into silence, unable to refute her words. But he was a man who was never wrong. He snorted, tossing a file onto the coffee table, the one Sharon had given him. This is the file on Leo. If your mother hadn't given it to me, I would never have believed you would choose to be with someone so ordinary, someone who doesn't even have parents. I forbid you from seeing him again. Faced with her father's coldness and lack of understanding, Isabelle's tears finally broke free. She looked at him, not with grief, but with a sudden, bitter smile. Dad, so what if Leo doesn't have parents? Have you forgotten? I don't have a mother either. My mother has been dead for a long time, and my father has never cared about me. If Leo doesn't mind that about me, what right do I have to mind that about him? Richard was stunned. After all this time, his daughter still refused to see Sharon as her mother. Otherwise, she never would have said such a thing. But Sharon was pregnant with his child, due in less than 2 months. Hearing Isabelle's heartbroken accusation, he trembled with rage. You! In a flash of anger, he raised his hand, ready to strike her. But Isabelle didn't move. She didn't even flinch. Instead, she took a step forward, bringing her face closer to his hand, her gaze defiant. The slap never landed. Just as his palm was about to connect with her cheek, he saw the tears she was so desperately trying to hold back. His hand froze in midair, held by an invisible force. A flicker of regret and conflict crossed his face, and he slowly lowered his arm. "Isabelle, you've disappointed me so much," he said finally, his voice laced with exhaustion and defeat. "Everything I do for your own good. Why can't you understand that?" Isabelle bit her lip, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. "For my good? Dad, you have no idea what I really want. I've never wanted incredible wealth, and I don't need you to plan out my entire life. All I've ever wanted was your time. Leo might not come from a wealthy family, but he gives me a warmth and care that I've never felt from anyone else." "That's temporary," Richard insisted stubbornly. "Once the novelty wears off, he'll show his true colors. I've been in the business world for years. I've seen every kind of person there is." Hearing this, Isabelle's expression grew complicated. She looked at her father, silent for a long moment. "Dad, if you think you're so good at reading people, why can't you see the truth about the person sleeping next to you every night?" Of course, she kept that thought to herself. She knew Sharon's methods all too well. Her father was already lost. A tense, oppressive silence filled the living room. After a long while, Richard took a deep breath, trying to soften his tone. "Isabelle, you're young and inexperienced. You can't see things clearly. I've been around. I know what kind of man is suitable for you." "The man who is suitable for me is Leo," Isabelle shot back, her gaze unwavering. "Dad, I want you to respect my choice." Richard's brow furrowed. "Respect your choice? Have you considered my feelings? After your mother passed away, I worked my fingers to the bone to raise you, hoping you would have a good future. And now you want to be with someone like him? How am I supposed to face your mother? If Mom were still here, she would want me to be happy." Isabelle's voice cracked. "And Leo is the one who can make me happy." Richard sighed, defeated. He knew he couldn't change her mind overnight. "Isabelle, just calm down. Since you and I can't discuss this, I'll have your mother. I'll have Sharon talk to you. In the meantime, you're to stay in this house. You're not to go out." With that, he turned and left the living room. Recalling that day, watching her father's retreating back, Isabelle's eyes blurred with fresh tears. She sat on her bed and sighed. She was under house arrest, completely unable to leave. In that case, when Leo comes to find me, how are we ever going to meet? The next day, Leo woke up early and went straight to Starfall Studios. He went through his usual routine, processing the documents that had piled up during his absence and analyzing the data from their recent videos. He met with Mark Zhang and the team to brainstorm ideas for trending topics to leverage during the holiday season. Then, he went to Sean Zhao's office. "Leo, about the recruiting thing." "It's fine, Sean," Leo interrupted, offering him a small smile. "You had your reasons. I understand. Since you've already made a decision, we'll leave it at that for now." Sean was taken aback. He had not expected Leo to be so calm about him unilaterally shutting down the plan. A wave of relief washed over him. The confrontation he had been dreading wasn't going to happen after all. Sean smiled back. "All right, then let's not talk about it. How are your injuries, Leo? Are you feeling better?" "Yeah, much better. Sean, I actually came to talk to you about." Leo then laid out a series of new ideas he had come up with while recovering in the Ozarks. Perhaps out of guilt, Sean agreed to almost everything without hesitation. As a result, the work Leo had expected to take 2 or 3 days to implement was all greenlit in a single day. That evening, he booked a flight to New York for the following morning. He didn't tell Isabelle, wanting to give her a surprise when he landed. He smiled to himself. I wonder what that secret gift she mentioned is. Before his flight, Leo made a crucial call to Landon Archer. The reason he hadn't confronted Sean at the studio was simple. What was done was done. Arguing about it now would be pointless. The priority was to find a way to salvage the situation. At first, he hadn't known how, but then he remembered his trip to New York, and he thought of Landon. As a recent investor in Starfall, Landon might have a solution. With his plan in motion, Leo sent a text to Isabelle. "Just got in bed. What are you up to tomorrow?" He expected a quick reply. He'd been busy at the studio all day and had told her he'd be slow to respond. Knowing her, she was probably waiting by her phone. But this time he was wrong. 10 minutes passed with no reply. Asleep by 11? That's early for her, he muttered to himself. He waited a little longer, but still nothing. Finally, he set his alarm for 8 a.m. and put his phone down. It was probably for the best. If they talked too much, she might figure out his surprise. The next morning at 8, Leo was jolted awake by his alarm, a dramatic movie trailer voice booming from his phone. In a world where sleep is the enemy, one man must rise. As a certified Sigma male, he didn't hit snooze. He was up, dressed, and in the bathroom in minutes. While brushing his teeth, he checked his phone. Isabelle usually woke up early. Still, there were no new messages from her, just a few notifications from his workgroup chat. He He felt a pang of disappointment, but brushed it off. He styled his hair, grabbed a piece of bread, and headed for the airport. After a smooth flight, he landed in New York. As he stepped out of the terminal, the cold air hit his face. He took a deep breath, an inexplicable joy bubbling up inside him. After nearly 10 days apart, the thought of seeing Isabelle again made him giddy. He pulled out his phone again. It was now past noon, and she still hadn't replied. Weird, he murmured. She can't still be sleeping, can she? He knew she wasn't one to sleep in unless she was exhausted. He hesitated for a moment, then found a quiet corner to call her. He didn't want to reveal he was already in the city just yet. He'd make up some excuse to get her to come out, then give her the big surprise. But when he dialed her number, he was met with an automated message. The number you have dialed has been switched off. Please try again later. Switched off. Leo frowned, a sense of unease creeping in. Before he could process it, his phone vibrated in his hand. Thinking it was Isabelle calling back, he glanced down eagerly. It was Landon Archer. Leo, you're in New York? Yeah, I just got out of the airport. But Isabelle's phone is off. I can't reach her. I was planning on surprising her. We can talk about what I called you about yesterday a little later. I want to find Isabelle first. There was a short silence on the other end of the line. Then Landon said grimly, Leo, I'm calling you because I figured you wouldn't be able to reach her. What? Did something happen to her? Leo's heart seized, his voice tight with panic. Whoa, calm down. She's fine, Landon said quickly. Nothing like that. She just can't be contacted right now. Are you at JFK or LaGuardia? I'll come pick you up. We can talk in person. JFK. Okay, be there in 20. After hanging up, Leo waited by the curb. Soon, a blindingly lime-green Lamborghini pulled up in front of him. The engine's roar died down, and the scissor door swung open, revealing Landon in the driver's seat. Leo, get in. It was the first time Leo had seen a $1 million supercar up close. He admired it for a second before quickly hopping in. Landon hit the gas, and they sped off, leaving a trail of envious stares in their wake. Landon took him to an upscale restaurant downtown. Once they were seated, Leo cut right to the chase. What happened to her? Landon sighed. Leo, I only found out about this morning. Otherwise, I would have told you when you called. You should probably prepare yourself for what I'm about to say. Just tell me. Landon nodded. Basically, when you were in the Ozarks, her father found out about you. When she got back to New York, they had a massive fight, and he grounded her. Yesterday evening, he wanted to take her to the company's annual gala, but she refused to go. He got so angry that he confiscated her phone. Right now, I can't reach her any more than you can.